This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome to the It Was a Thing on TV podcast, episode 3, a special two-part episode. Submission 010, Manimal and Automan. Manimal aired from September 30th of 1983 to December 17th of 1983 for a total of 8 episodes.
Manimal.
Wow! Manimal.
Yeah, oh my, it's going to be one of those episodes. We chose 2 episodes today because they're linked by one person, and this person, he created a number of great series over the 70s. He created Switch, which ran for 3 seasons. Quincy ran for like 7 seasons, 6 seasons. He did Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew Mysteries. He also did the original Battlestar Galactica. And he did Buck Rogers in the 25th century in the late 70s and early 80s. Plus also some other shows. BJ and the Bear. And he did created The Fall Guy and Knight Rider. But these 2 episodes are sort of like separating his good work from his bad work. His good work also included being a producer on Magnum P.I., produced some of the $6 Million Man, produced, who said The Fall Guy? Simon he created too. But after that, starting in 83, there's a whole lot of shows that he produced primarily that would be fodder for this podcast. Manimal, Automan, Half Nelson, Cover Up, Not the Price is Right Game, One West Waikiki, Team Knight Rider, possible future episode there. He did produce the Battlestar Galactica from 03 to 09 on Sci-Fi, so we'll give him a little bit of credit there. But yeah, this is like a line of separation from good and bad. Pre-83, good. Post-83, not so good. And we're going to talk about 2 of those shows from 83 today. First, we're going to start with Manimal. Or I should say, Manimal.
No, it's wow! Manimal.
I can't do that voice, I'm sorry. Mine's more like a little kitty cat, not like a panther or a jaguar. So, Greg, what do you have to say about Manimal?
What else can I say about Manimal, except I will read the opening narration from the legendary fat man himself, William Conrad. Dr. Jonathan Chase, wealthy, young, handsome, a man with the brightest of futures, a man with the darkest of pasts. From Africa's deepest recesses to the reified peaks of Tibet, heir to his father's legacy and the world's darkest mysteries, Jonathan Chase, master of the secrets that divide man from animal, animal from man. Wow! Manimal.
I didn't expect that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was on Friday nights along with Mr. Smith, which we covered last week, and Jennifer Slept Here, which we're going to cover next week. Oh, they just had a bunch of winners on NBC Friday nights back in 1983. Oh my. Well, Greg, I'm going to let you take the reins of this because I don't know how much of this I can handle.
Okay, well, Manimal follows the adventures of Dr. Jonathan Chase. Now, Jonathan would be a shapeshifter, and he could turn himself into any animal he chose and use this ability to fight crime. He got this power from his father right before he died, as seen in that brilliant opening credit montage back from when he was a little kid, and his dad tells him, it's not the end, it's only the beginning. And then his dad disappears and becomes one with nature, I guess. His body disappears, so I guess he's kind of like Yoda in Return of the Jedi. He just becomes one with nature and disappears. Except, I don't know what if Manimal has some kind of relation with the Force or anything.
And some of the animals that he turns into, he turns into falcons or eagles, and he turns into panthers. He's turned into a snake once to be used as like a rope to pull somebody from quicksand. We're going to avoid the double entendres of a woman grabbing a snake.
I should note, only 2 people on this show were aware of Jonathan's secret. His good friend Ty Earl and police detective Brooke McKenzie. And Jonathan and Ty would assist Brooke with a case she was working on in the first episode, with Jonathan transforming himself into an animal when it became useful.
Greg and I had some arguments about this in terms of what's useful.
Oh yeah, I have a bone to pick with you, Mike, about this.
I argue that he was never a good animal, because couldn't you see like a good animal being useful in some cases? And by good animal, I mean a puppy dog, a kitty cat.
No, well, here's the thing, Mike. He's helping to solve crimes. Why would you solve a crime if you're going to be a cute animal? Wouldn't you want to be a ferocious animal to have the criminals fear you?
Well, if you're a little kitty cat, you've got those little paws, and you don't make a lot of noise when you walk. Wouldn't that be good to sneak up on somebody, and then maybe you go from like a kitty cat into a jaguar, and then maul somebody?
You just wanted to see a transformation where he turned into a cat.
So? But it's a valid point. I mean, there are so many things he could have turned into, good, not necessarily good, bad, or otherwise, but I mean, you can use good animals per se in situations like that. You could be a butterfly flying into some office window. You could be a little hamster going through the ductwork in the ceiling to go into the hidden office of somebody. Am I wrong?
Why would anyone want to see him turn into a hamster?
Okay, look, you just...
No one would want to see that!
Okay, but listen. You had Mr. Smith on an hour earlier, and then you had Jennifer Slept Here, so the kids are still probably watching. Don't you want to attract the younger viewers, like the 9-year-olds or 8-year-olds like me at the time, with a cute little kitty cat, or a gerbil, or a butterfly, or a ladybug?
You want to see some action! You want to see some action! You want to see him turn into a ferocious panther, or a bear. You want to see him turn into a bear and maul people. You want to see him as a hawk snooping in on the criminals down below.
Why couldn't he be a pigeon instead of a hawk?
He did turn into a pigeon once!
Oh, so he was a good animal. Thank you.
But he also turned into a hawk!
Okay, then why couldn't he have been like another nice bird? A lovebird, a parakeet. Why did it have to be a hawk?
Because hawks are cool.
Hawks are cool, I'll give you that. So he turned into jaguars and hawks and snakes. and one time a pigeon. I could see why you would hate pigeons. You're from New York. Nobody in New York likes pigeons.
He would also sometimes transform himself into a third animal. Sometimes he would transform into a bull. He'd transform into a bear. He'd transform into a dolphin. And he'd even transform himself into a horse. But, of course, the problem is these transformations would usually take place off-screen.
You know what? The one thing he couldn't transform himself into?
What?
A good TV show.
No, I will not take this, Mike. I will not stand for it. You will not besmirch the greatness that was Simon McCorkindale in this show. I'm sorry. I will not. And also, Mike, I should note, the transformation sequences were designed by legendary special effects artist, Academy Award winner, Stan Winston.
Good, that and $1 will get you a cup of coffee.
Oh wait, you're gonna knock the greatness that is Stan Winston with his amazing special effects when he would turn into a freaking panther or a snake? You don't think those were cool?
I'm going to make full... It scared me as an 8-year-old, okay? I was very sensitive back then. And apparently I still am now. I'm just going to... For full disclosure, I lasted all of about 5 minutes on this show.
Oh, how could you?
Because it was so bad. I've seen better acting at kindergarten variety shows.
No, I will not. No. This was great. I'm going to stand by it.
Go ahead and defend it.
Okay, think about this. You have a rich man, Dr. Jonathan Chase, trying to solve crimes with a police detective and his best friend. And he could turn himself into any animal to stop crimes. Okay, let me read to you some of the plots here. First episode. A group of thieves devise a plan to hijack a shipment of nerve gas. So, he teams up with Detective Brooke, and he knows the secrets of man and animal, and he's trained in an African technique that allows him to transform into different animals. I mean, come on, what more do you need? And then the second episode, he tries to stop a Bulgarian ambassador who hides behind his immunity stash to smuggle illegal goods into the country. Those are bad people, those Bulgarian ambassadors using their immunity.
One thing I've noticed just in those first 2 episodes, there's a lot of illegal smuggling going on.
Well, in the third episode, while being interrogated by Russian agents about the location of a list, a man dies from a truth serum drug. A note and $2 million are left to his daughter. And Jonathan, Brooke, and Ty must protect the man's daughter while trying to locate the list before Russian agents do.
I think that's the episode where I saw the last 5 minutes and just said, nope, I give up. Nope, can't do any more.
That was your problem, Mike. You watched the last 5 minutes. You did not watch the entire episode.
No, I lost it when the agents or whatever, or whomever were in some sort of shack near water, and there was a circus nearby. Somehow there was an elephant trainer with an elephant nearby, and apparently Simon McCorkindale's character, Dr. Jonathan Chase. You see, that's how much I remember about this stupid show. He coerced the elephant to push this hut or shack or whatever into the water. He didn't even transform into the elephant. He said, "Hey, Dumbo, go over there and ram your head through the wall of that shack and push it into the water."
All right, now we get to the best part, episode 4. After a girl is found living with wolves in the forests of India, she is the topic of discussion at a local university where she is being held, where an attempt is made on her life. Dr. Jonathan Chase takes her into his care and protection. Her identity must be found in order to discover who it is that is trying to kill her. Now, a fun fact about this episode. This episode, episode 4, Female of the Species, has an identical storyline to a 1986 episode of The Wizard titled Endangered Species, as well as, Mike, a 1994 episode of the same name in Thunder in Paradise, starring Hulk Hogan.
Oh, spoiler, that's on our list of shows to cover.
And what do those 3 episodes have in common? They were written by Michael Burke and Douglas Schwartz. And a fun fact, Michael Burke you may best know as the creator of Baywatch.
Which makes me wonder why they didn't use this plot in Baywatch. Pamela Anderson could have turned into a jaguar to protect this young Indian girl. That's a totally different spin-off. I quit. Maybe David Hasselhoff could have turned into the jaguar.
Episode 5, we have an episode called High Stakes, where a horse trainer recognizes her stolen horse in a race, while Jonathan helps her try to recover it. Sadly, the special guests of that episode were not Mike Francesa and Secretariat.
Hoss.
Episode 6, Scrimshaw. While at the beach, Jonathan and the others discover a scrimshaw, a rawless tusk with carvings on it, in the clutches of a skeleton. They begin investigating at a local bar where they encounter someone who has been looking for it for their whole life. And the guest star on that episode is Mino Peluche, who would be best known for the 1982 NBC series Voyagers.
Another possible episode in the future, hint, hint, hint.
Yes. Episode 6.
Mino Pelucci, yes.
I was not... Voyagers was 2 years before I was born, so cut me some slack. Breath of the Dragon, Episode 7. Jonathan, Brooke, and Ty must stop a criminal who extorts money from businessmen in Chinatown while posing as a superstitious icon known as the Dragon. There's a fun fact about this episode, which I'm going to mention. Well, I will mention it. Well, I'll mention it later when we get to the second part of the episode. And the final episode, Night of the Beast, Episode 8. While on a well-deserved vacation, Jonathan, Ty, and Brooke get involved to thwart an attempt by a syndicate boss to illegally take over the town of Birch Hollow in order to legalize gambling and build a large casino.
Boy, now I know why Manimal got canceled. Those thrilling plot lines. I mean, they could have had a crossover episode where they brought on Mr. Smith. You know, Mr. Smith tried to save the country from nuclear war, and Jonathan Chase turned into an orangutan, and I don't know what they would have done as an orangutan, but I'm surprised NBC didn't go down that route because they promoted the living dickens out of Mr. Smith.
Yeah, you tell me. I mean, God, if that had happened, I bet you both shows would have had a 5-year run. I guarantee it.
Oh, they would have both seen 1984, I'm sure, and then it would have been promptly canceled in 1984.
The character of Manimal would come back later in 1996 when Glenn Larson resurrected the Jonathan Chase character on a crossover of his 1990 series Nightman. In that episode, Manimal's traditional practical effects transformation was abandoned in favor of CGI sequence. And in the episode, Nightman aligns with Dr. Jonathan Chase to stop Jack the Ripper, and it involves time traveling, that is just amazing. Manimal, time travel, Jack the Ripper. Oh man. Sadly it's in an episode of Nightman, which sucks, but I mean still, you do get Simon McCorkindale back as Dr. Jonathan Chase, and that is fantastic.
And if you're as captivated by this as I am, Shout Factory actually released the entire series on DVD in 2015.
Yes.
And Greg did send me a link maybe about a week and a half ago. It's on Amazon for, I think, $22.
Yeah, that is money well spent. Oh my goodness! On the wiki, in 1984, a Manimal Annual was released in the UK. It is a book containing stories and comics and games based on the show. Hold up. I gotta try to find this.
You know what I'm searching for?
Well, there it is. $43.28 pre-owned on eBay.
Or the cost of 2 series of it on DVD.
Oh my God. Wow.
They'll create annuals for anything in England.
Oh, you're telling me. But speaking of eBay, we got to mention some stuff we saw on eBay a couple weeks ago. I mentioned last week the pictures we found of Mr. Smith and Bobo. Some of the pictures we found relating to Manimal. We have this amazing picture of Simon McCorkindale holding a falcon like he's the falconer's dad.
Simon McCorkindale was the best falconer until Peter Griffin came along with sidecar falcon Xerxes.
And we also found a picture of Simon McCorkindale in the transformation sequence with the panther head on.
Oh, don't you wish you can get one of those signed by him?
How dare you, Mike? You know he's passed away.
I know, but just the collector value of him wearing that head and having it autographed.
Oh my God!
That's something you'd hang in your bathroom, I'm sure.
Oh man, it would. Next to the pictures of Super Train I'll have one day.
Super Train. Oh my gosh.
Now,
so yeah, needless to say, yeah, they like taking pictures of Simon Corkindale with a falcon. Some of them with Melody Anderson, some without. I mean, if you look at the Wikipedia, the picture that's used there is Simon McCorkindale with a falcon and Melody Anderson.
And it's a beautiful picture, if I must say.
I think any picture of Manimal would be a good picture to you.
You damn well bet.
Well, Greg, you purposely skipped episode number 7, Birth of the Dragon. There's something you wanted to add.
Oh, yes.
Please, take it away.
Okay, a fun trivia note. Both episode 7 and one episode of Automan feature a crossover. Now, what is Automan? What you say? Well, you're going to find out right now.
Part 2 of this episode, Automan. Automan aired from December 15th of 1983 to April 2nd, 1984 for a total of 13 episodes, one of which did not air.
Aw.
And if you could see how much pain I was in talking about Manimal, Automan's actually even worse. This one, I don't think I lasted more than about 4 minutes into. And I was just like dabbling. I wanted to see what it was. And I have a lot to say about it. But again, I'm going to defer to Greg to begin with. I want to hear his thoughts.
Automan follows the adventures of a police officer and a computer programmer named Walter Neberger, played by Desi Arnaz Jr., and he has created a crime-fighting program which is made up of AI that generates a hologram played by Chuck Wagner, who is able to leave the computer world at night and fight crime. So it's kind of like Tron, but with crime fighting.
And that's actually the comparison I made, because when I first saw this, the suit that Automan wears, or maybe not even the suit, his body, is like the neon blue electric sort of like pattern or whatever that you saw in Tron on the suits that the those riders wore. I haven't seen Tron in a long time. I just know they're very similar to what was used in Tron.
Yes, it's like Glenn Larson saw Tron in the theater and he's like, "Yeah, I'm making a show about this. Making a show about this, but I'm adding crime fighting along with Manimal, where we have a guy who can turn into any animal. This is going to be gold."
Well, that's what he said back in 1983, and boy, was he wrong.
Now, I love that in the first episode, they don't even like waste the entire pilot on the origin story of Automan. They just simplify the origin story in like 2 to 3 minutes. Here's Desi Arnaz Jr. He's a computer programmer. He wants to fight crime, but he can't because he's a computer programmer. So he just creates this program, and here's Automan. There you go.
And he's like a hologram.
Oh, he is.
So he's not even a real man. He's like a hologram. Yet he like takes up space in 3 dimensions. So again, that makes it even more ridiculous. And I mentioned this to Greg earlier. Something I was looking at earlier. He could dress up in a suit, and you see this little ring of blue around the around his neckline, which is his hologram body. But also, how does a hologram wear a suit?
Well, he puts the suit on, doesn't he?
Okay, but the thing is, how does a hologram wear a suit? Did the Tupac hologram put on some outfit to sing at Coachella or whatever a few years ago? You can't put a suit on a hologram. Hologram is like an optical illusion. It's not 3-dimensional. Well, I'm sorry for interjecting some reality into this, but come on. Holograms cannot wear suits. I'm going to hashtag that. Hashtag holograms cannot wear suits.
That's going to be the second biggest hashtag of 2019 next to Gary was robbed.
Hashtag holograms cannot wear suits. Okay, that's going on all the websites when I update it with this episode. But it's just ridiculous. Like I said, I'm waiting for somebody that he's talking to that sees like this little thin neon, almost like a collar around his neck, to like pull down his suit and be like, what is that, glowing neon toothpaste gel-like color coming from your neck? And he just goes, I don't know. Desi Arnaz Jr. created me. Maybe I just don't get fiction, or maybe this fiction is just too stupid and absurd for television. But holograms cannot wear suits. Dang it, I'm going to fight that to my death.
Do you want to hear something amazing?
Okay.
While in the real world, Automan posed as a government agent. Do you want to know what his fake name was?
Oh, Mr. Smith? Oh, no, that is another government agent.
Otto J. Man.
Okay, this is like the laziest TV show in history. Otto J. Man. Really?
What?
No, that's just lazy writing. He could have been, Bob McCorkindale or something like that, with all due respect to Simon. But no, he's Otto J. Man, because why? He's Automan. Ha 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 ha. Lazy.
This was a secret to everybody except Walter's close associate, Roxanne Caldwell, played by Heather McNair. Now, Desi Arnaz Jr.'s character of Walter Neviger could merge with Automan and to become one being, sharing consciousness and skills while retaining Automan's invulnerability. Isn't that amazing?
No, there's more things even more amazing about this. I'm wondering, in the opening sequence, something that doesn't even frigging exist got a credit. Cursor as himself. He's this little, ball that looks sort of like diamondy, and it's spinning, and oh, by the way, Cursor's a little pervert.
Oh, he is. He definitely is.
Yeah, if you see the opening credit, he puts a little heart on top of Heather McNair, and it just happens to be a heart surrounding her attributes. Really? I'm sure that wasn't coincidence. Oh, that's great TV for 8 o'clock in the evening. That's the other thing. I can't believe this aired at 8 o'clock. This is like a 9 o'clock show. This is Manimal stuff. It aired at 8 o'clock.
Well, didn't the A-Team air at 8 o'clock?
The A-Team didn't have a perverted little cursor. The A-Team had Mr. T.
Yeah, but it still had loads and loads of violence. That's worse than
a perverted cursor?
Oh, in 1983, yes.
But he was doing good. He was. He was fighting for America. What was Automan doing? He was turning into a car with Desi Arnaz. Somehow they integrated together. Their DNA turned each other into a car, and they made ridiculous, impossible right-angle turns. No, this doesn't turn like a regular car where you've got to turn a little wide, and it's actually like a curvy turn. No. They did a solid right angle. All like from Tron with those racing cars. If you've ever played the Tron video game, you know what I'm talking about. One of the best video games ever, by the way. But seriously, he makes a right angle as a turn. No, that's not possible. Again, I'm sorry for bringing reality into this, but no. There's a reason why I did not see the show as a kid. There's a reason why I didn't hear this until many, many years later, and then went down the rabbit hole of watching this for 5 minutes. Continue.
Do you want to go over the episodes titles?
I was hoping you would.
Okay, episode 1, Automan. We've already discussed the basics, but okay. Here's the thing: Walter Nebiger's superior, Captain Boyd, has assigned Nebiger to a desk job where he can utilize his skills as a computer expert. That's I watched like 20 minutes of the pilot. I'll be honest, Mike, I couldn't get through it, so...
Hey, still 20 more minutes than I did. I didn't watch the pilot.
But here's a great title, Episode 2. Are you ready for this title?
I'm seated.
Staying alive while running a high flash dance fever.
Okay, too many pop culture references there.
Staying alive while running a high flash dance fever. Did Glenn Larson go to Alex Trebek to suggest the title of this episode?
And maybe he got the $10,000 Chinese fishbowl.
That's another future episode.
Potentially, yes.
Yes. Walter and Automan investigate a judge that appears to be corrupt and involved with the mob. The mob are a dangerous undercover regime and capture Roxanne. They bind and gag her in the back of a car before Automan eventually rescues her. Oh boy, they bind and gag her. That, as you said, Mike, that's riveting for 8 o'clock for the kids.
That has never been used before. Nobody has ever been gagged and put in the trunk of a car. And to figure, Automan rescued her in the end.
Episode 3, The Great Pretender. When a truckload of paper the government uses to print money is hijacked, Automan, with the help of Cursor, poses as a rich criminal, competing to undermine the existing network of a known criminal dealing in counterfeit money. Now, here's the first cameo, the first crossover with Manimal. Part of the scene on the taxi cab was reused from the TV series Manimal Episode 2 Illusion. So here's the thing. Both sequences use a sequence involving a shady cab driver who has a car bomb. Now, in the Automan part of it, when the cab driver is getting out of the car, you can freaking see, if you pause it, the silhouettes of the girl and Simon McCorkindale from Manimal. It's like they didn't even bother with the continuity in recycling this goddamn scene.
I'm more trying to understand how Automan and Cursor sort of integrated and turned into a rich criminal. I'm wondering why Cursor had to be involved, what he brought to that proceeding to help Automan become a criminal. I mean, Automan is already a man. I mean, he just needs to take on an evil persona. I mean, is that what what Cursor did. He put evil thoughts into Automan's mind. Again, the logic just baffles me.
What if there was an evil Cursor? Like there was a good Cursor and an evil Cursor?
You're complicating this way too much for this time of night.
It brings us to episode 4, Ships in the Night. Walter and Otto fly to San Cristobal to investigate the disappearances of Americans. They discover a man aided by the local authorities that lures investors in order to kill them and take their money.
Okay, at least that's sort of realistic because of all the issues that have been happening in like Dominican Republic or Haiti or whatever, but that's kind of creepy.
Episode 5, Unreasonable Facsimile. Automan and Walter attempt to solve the murder of a businessman and the crash of a police helicopter. Automan begins acting peculiar after watching soap operas on television. Well, wouldn't you?
Exactly, don't we all?
Episode
I just want to say, Automan should have been watching the game shows. Wouldn't that be funny? Automan, he could turn into like the Joker's Wild Slot Machine. Now, I'm just saying, I just want to throw that out. I mean, that might be peculiar, but that would be funny. He just automatically spins 25, 75, 50. Never mind, go on.
What if to scare criminals he became like the dragon from Tic-Tac-Toe?
Why did my dragon sound like Yoda?
Yes! Dragon I will sound like! Yes! Manimal's dad with me! Yes!
Episode 6?
Flashes and Ashes. Walter's friend and fellow cop Frank Cooney is killed during the theft of police weaponry. But when the Internal Affairs agent believes Frank was involved, Walter is suspended when he and Otto interfere trying to prove his friend's innocence. Man, that is just unbelievable. They think that, oh my god, that is just unbelievable. You have nothing to add about episode 6, Mike?
I have one thing to add about this entire series.
What? What is it?
It's coming in a couple episodes.
Oh, okay. Episode 7, The Biggest Game in Town. Automan and Walter attend a computer game convention where they must track down Ronald Tilson, a computer genius who has programmed computers to cause disasters that will kill people unless he gets $10 million. That's a plot of Superman 3.
It's also the 1984 version of ransomware. I just wonder if Automan went to a computer game convention, might he fall in love with like Miss Pac-Man?
And what would Mr. Pac-Man be? What would his reaction be? Wasn't the Pac-Man cartoon on ABC at this time?
I do believe you're right about that, yes.
They could have had a crossover with the Pac-Man cartoon.
Episode 8.
Renegade Run. When Walter investigates a crooked sheriff who is using illegal immigrants for manual labor, he and a friend are put in jail. Automan teams up with a motorcycle gang to free him.
I have nothing to say about this because everything is just going to lead back to what's happening nowadays politically.
Yeah, good. Let's move on from that. Episode 9, Murder MTV. Walter and Automan investigate an apparent attempt to kill the members of an all-female band called Sweet Kicks, but their investigation is hampered when the father of one of the women seeks assistance from a crime syndicate. This episode's title references MTV. No, are you kidding? I would have guessed VH1.
If I saw this episode, I would actually say, I don't want my MTV.
Here we go. Episode 10. Murder Take 1. And you're going to have a lot to say about this, Mike. I just know this.
I have some stuff to say.
Former movie star Veronica Everly is a suspect in the murder of gossip columnist Ray Gillette. However, when Automan discovers that a Hollywood producer had a greater motive for murder, he goes undercover as an actor to catch the real killer.
Okay, this is one of the 5 minutes that I saw of this insipid show. I was actually doing show prep, And I went through the people who guest starred on both of these shows, and I found that a very familiar name was in this episode. Someone by the name of Peter Marshall. Yes, the same Peter Marshall that hosted Hollywood Squares. I went to the episode to see how much he played. He did play this Ray Gillette, the murdered gossip columnist, and he's on screen for just about 70 seconds. He's leaving some sort of a party, gets into a vehicle, drives home, gets to his front door, and bang, 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 Peter Marshall's as dead as the real picture show.
Which may or may not be something we cover in the future.
Why don't we just say all our submissions right now while we're at it, just so people can get out of their system. Are you going to cover this show? Are you going to cover that show? Yes, we're just going to say yes. We're going to cover all the shows. We're going to be here till I'm like 90 and Greg is like 80. We're just going to be covering game shows, or not game shows. We're going to be covering all sorts of bad shows from our nursing homes. They're going to be giving us like bedpans and stuff while we're doing this, because we may be peeing ourselves laughing. But yeah, we'll be here doing like every crappy show in the history of television. We'll even create our own crappy shows because we're going to run out of them.
We're going to say to the nurse, you think this is bad? You should have seen Whitney.
Oh, I don't think we have that one down. I think I need to add that one to the list.
Oh, Jill, no. Do I really have to watch Whitney?
You brought it upon yourself. You're the one who mentioned it.
Oh, jeez. What have I done?
You've given me another submission. That's what you've done.
All right. Episode 11. You're not going to believe this, Mike. Zippers.
Zippers? Okay, that might be the worst episode title ever. Zippers. Okay,
wait till you hear the description of this.
Zippers. Okay.
Automan goes undercover as an erotic dancer at a ladies only strip club. Automan goes undercover as an erotic dancer at a ladies only strip club.
Okay. Forgive me, I'm actually going to see if this is online.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's online. It's in Spanish though.
Cares?
Oh, no, I don't know why I'm looking at this. Jeez. Now entering the stage, ladies, it's Automan. Okay. So I think he's dressed as a police officer, but the thing is he has blue lightning bolts on his back and on his shoulders. So it's like, you remember what I said earlier about you could see like that little collar of blue on his neck when he wore a suit?
Yes.
It's the same color blue these lightning bolts are, so I don't know if it's like peeking through the suit but you can still even see the neon blue ring around his neck. I mean, his shoes are friggin' neon blue. Oh my gosh. And he's just dancing, wiggling, shaking. I mean, he's wearing his clothes. He took off his shirt. What the hell? What the hell? He took off his shirt.
Mike, would you...
So now he's that entire, Crest sparkly toothpaste blue all over his body. Okay, but he's wearing pants still. He just took off his shirt. And all the ladies, they're not suspecting anything. Oh, look at the Tron creature dance for us. No, they're all, dancing to the music, all laughing and stuff. And he just took off his pants. Oh my gosh. And I don't think he's wearing any underwear. I think he's wearing a belt, though. What the hell? This doesn't make sense. No, he's not wearing any underwear. And this dude at 8 o'clock at night. Okay, you're making your... Wait! Is he wearing underwear? His butt doesn't have any of that blue sparkly crap.
Mike, I have an honest question. Who would you rather see at a ladies-only strip club stripping? Automan or Bobo.
What the hell are those two choices? That I'd rather gouge out my eyes. But this is... I don't freaking get this. No! And if you're wondering, this is about 14 minutes into the episode. And he just did a backflip onto the top of the stage.
Hold up. I need to see this now, because I need to see this too. Hold on.
Okay, he starts dancing about 12 and a half minutes into the episode.
It's a good thing that it's a good thing Chico's not here watching this. He would already be 1-800-235 dead. Yeah. 14 minutes, you said?
It starts about 12 and a half minutes in.
Oh, okay.
He takes off his top at 14 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he takes his pants off at 14:22.
Hang on, I'm watching this on... Oh my god! He's got lightning bolts all over his suit.
That's what I'm saying. He has lightning bolts all over his suit.
Oh my god. He's shaking his moneymaker. Oh my god.
Well, how do I know he has a moneymaker? He there's nothing showing there when he took off his pants.
Oh my god, he's the dancing. Oh, Jesus. Oh.
Oh, and then he returns to the stage at about 39 minutes and 35 seconds.
Oh, let me just skip ahead here.
And I think I saw Walter run into his body, so it must be Walter merging with him. Which, I'm not touching that with a forklift. Oh no, he's actually fighting them on the stage. But he's wearing that the suit with the blue lightning bolts on it.
Oh, that's incredible.
No, that's another show on ABC.
Oh. You know what? It needed a guest starring spot from John Davidson when you think about it.
This show needed a lot of stuff. I don't think John Davidson could have helped it.
I think he could have. Oh my god, he used like his force lightning bolt, and he just made a person collapse. That was amazing.
We need to go to episode 12 after that.
Oh god! All right, here we go. All right, let's resume. Now,
we're keeping all that in. There is no resuming. That's all staying in here. Edit points can go to hell right now. That's all staying in.
And I thought it would peak with Manimal, but this is even better.
Well, you said zippers, and that's where I lost it.
Episode 12, Death by Design. When a ruthless crime syndicate kills one of Jack's best friends, Automan poses as a vigilante cop by the name of Mad Dog, who is out for justice. Sadly does not turn into Chris Russo.
You see, the first thing that came to my mind was Mad Dog McCree, the game for the CDI and some other systems.
Oh my god, that terrible Wild West shooting game.
Yes.
I remember back in the day they would have it displayed at like CompUSA, even back like in 1994. I knew it was terrible.
I don't have it, sadly, and I'm not planning on getting it.
Oh, they made a compilation on the Wii like 10 years ago of Mad Dog McCree 1 and 2.
There was a 2. Oh my gosh.
And now, thankfully, Mike, we get into the final episode.
Hallelujah!
And this one did not even air until it was rebroadcast years later on the Sci-Fi Channel.
So this is the one that didn't air originally, but aired later. Okay.
Yeah. Club 10. The exclusive Club 10 resort is a center for diamond smuggling. When Laura Ferguson stumbles on this secret, she manages to put an SOS call to her old friend Roxanne before being taken prisoner. Roxanne, Walter, and Automan are soon on the trail of the missing Laura, unaware that they themselves are being trailed.
What a thrilling series. Thrilling. Riveting.
And one more note I should mention that ties back to Manimal. Both episode 7 of Manimal and one episode of Automan feature a crossover element. Both Walter and Dr. Chase can alternately be seen in the background of a scene in each show as they were shot at the same diner. Well, unfortunately, we did not get an epic crossover between Manimal and Automan. It would have been like the Practice Ally McBeal crossover of its day on 2 different networks.
It would have been Automanimal. Could you imagine? What would happen if Automan and Manimal actually like crossed? Because Automan, well, he turned into a car with Cursor. Does that mean that he ran over Manimal and Manimal was roadkill? I don't know. The possibilities are endless. Oh, and just like Manimal, if you want to see this on DVD, and heaven help you if you do, it is on DVD. And believe it or not, it was actually released the same day as Manimal on DVD. November 10th of 2015. 4 discs featuring all 13 episodes, plus bonus features in case you can't get enough.
Well,
I'm almost tempted to go on Amazon right now and see how much it's going for, because I have too much time on my hands and too much Amazon credit in my account.
Oh, you're not going to believe this, Mike. There's a Commodore 64 Automan video game.
No, I'm not surprised, but no, Oh, 1978, by the way, on Amazon. So for under $20, not including shipping or taxes, you can get Automan the complete series. And Greg, I'm not touching this one with a forklift.
Well, that's your loss, Mike.
No, I think it's my gain. I don't think it's my loss. But not only was there a video game released, now this is mostly in the UK, but action figures were released, Halloween costumes, a toy auto car, and a novel of the pilot episode. And then here in the USA, there were a number of toys based on the show that were to be sold in supermarkets, including toy print sets, money sets, binoculars, etc.
Can you imagine having Cursor on your currency?
That doesn't even deserve a response. Again, it. We don't know if Cursor's a he or a she, even though it's credited as a he in the show. Yeah, we weren't in such politically correct times. Cursor isn't it. It's. I'm done with this show. Seriously. Greg, do not gift me Automan for Christmas. I will send it back to you with some hate notes.
Fine, I'll send you Manimal.
I'll send you. Don't press your luck. Oh, I will end this podcast right now if you try such stuff. No, like I said, 5 minutes of Manimal, 5 minutes of Automan, and that's when I clicked off of YouTube and said, screw this, this is a Greg show, I can't do this anymore.
Man, if you're angry about Automan and Manimal, you're going to be really pissed about 10 episodes from now. And Mike, to tie it back into episode 1 of the podcast, you're not going to believe this, Mike, but Chuck Wagner was one of the guests on the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour the week of April 23rd to 27th of 1984.
Yeah, you know what's kind of funny? Automan had been canceled by then.
And you know who was on the panel that same week as Chuck Wagner on Match Game Hollywood Squares?
I have no idea.
Leonard Fry was on the panel that week.
You mean from Mr. Smith, Leonard Fry?
Do you think Gene Wood still introduces him in April of 1984 as from Mr. Smith, Leonard Fry?
I guess we'll have to find out in maybe about 4 or 5 months.
But guess who else was on the panel? Your favorite bimbo, Lydia Cornell.
She's not a bimbo. She was a college student on Too Close for Comfort. Take that back.
I just wanted to see the reaction you'd get.
I will defend her to the death. She played a classy, smart college student.
Yeah, you're right. We all know the real designated bimbo of the week that week is Phyllis Diller.
Absolutely. With those wild wigs she wore back in the 80s? Absolutely. She was a little trollop back in the day. Now we're going to get sued by Phyllis Diller's estate. Yay! So that puts a wrap on this Glenn Larson two-part episode, Manimal and Automan. Or maybe we should just call it Automanimal. Next week we're going to have our first special guest. I won't say who it is, but it's somebody who has all the episodes of this series on DVD, and I'm sure this person will give us some great insights about the NBC comedy Jennifer Slept Here with Ann Jillian. Remember, you can find us all over the internet. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/itwasathingontv, and on Instagram at instagram.com/itwasathingontv, and Twitter at twitter.com/you got it, itwasathingontv, and we're on Tumblr at itwasathingontv.tumblr.com, and if you just want to go straight to the home of the podcast, it's itwasathingontv.podbean.com. So until next week, when Greg and myself delve into Jennifer Slept Here, we'll see you later. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Wow! Manimal.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on two great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content. Offer tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all these great shows, plus archives of our past podcasts from over the past 8 years as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth search projects, and much more. Be sure to support our site by using www.PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping. We want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and HistoryOfWrestling.com as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome to the It Was a Thing on TV podcast, episode 4, submission 020. Jennifer Slept Here. It aired on NBC from October 21st of 1983 to September 5th of 1984 for a total of 13 episodes.
Hello? It's me! And only you can see me.
I just saw the most beautiful ghost in the world, and she slept here. I just saw the most outrageous kind of a girl, and she lives here. Jennifer, what you doing to me? In and out of my life you appear. They say the stars don't shine as bright since you left here. And Jennifer slept here. She lived here. She loved here, laughed here, and wept here. She slept here, and she never really left here. Jennifer slept here.
Hello, Mike Klaus here. I'm joined by Chico Alexander, and we have a special guest for the first time ever.
Woohoo!
Kris Lane!
Never heard of him.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's radio's Kris Lane. Oh my god, I'm such a big fan.
Oh my god, that one. He's here where?
Can I get your autograph?
Sure, I'm writing it down right now. Hold on a minute.
On this check from your personal bank account that I can go cash?
The only thing you'll be able to get with that is debt, I'm afraid. But if you're welcome to it, if you like it.
Good, just like my paychecks. Getting nothing. All right.
Don't.
So Kris is here because he is a fan of this show, Jennifer Slept Here. He has all the episodes on DVD.
Yep.
And he has joked for years about Ann Jillian. Which is really one of the main reasons I brought him here. I know he had the DVD. I've known that for years. But his love of Ann Jillian is without compare.
Yes.
I think.
What can I say? There's just something special about her. Let's just put it that way. And I love it when my fellow friends can appreciate the love and beauty that is Ann Jillian.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit later. About the show. It aired on Friday nights, sort of continuing our trend of dealing with NBC Friday night shows. Mr. Smith was on at 8 p.m., and then Jennifer Slept Here was on at 8:30, and then 9 o'clock was Manimal. And we're not covering the 10 o'clock show next week because we'll get into that later on in the podcast. And so NBC at some point must have doubled down on trying to save Jennifer Slept Here because in the summer of 1984, right before it was canceled, Jennifer Slept Here also aired on Wednesday nights. So you had Wednesday night and Friday night, and the shows that aired then were just summer reruns. I mean, it's not like nowadays where you have a whole new series which will last 6 weeks or 8 weeks like they do with Pyramid or Match Game or any of these other short-run series that show up every year. They showed reruns of Jennifer Slept Here because NBC was trying anything to get people to watch their insipid shows. As we mentioned earlier, Ann Jillian, she was the main star of the show. She played the ghost Jennifer, and she had a very good track record going into the show. Not that I'd say her track record was mangled in any way because she was on Jennifer Slept Here, but she was on the sitcom It's a Living, which was on ABC in 1981 and 82. Spoiler, that might be another episode. But also, she was nominated for an Emmy and a Golden Globe after portraying Mae West in a 1982 television movie. So she had some cachet at the time. She was a known star, a known entity, obviously award nominated. So she was not a bum they just picked up off the streets. But also, in addition to Ann Jillian, the other big name that was on this show was Glenn Scarpelli, who you might remember as being on One Day at a Time. He was there from 1980 to 1983, and if this was his decision to go from One Day at a Time to Jennifer Slept Here, it might not have been the best career move. Now, I know One Day at a Time only lasted another year or two, but still, you're going from a sitcom that lasted 9 seasons, I believe, 8 or 9 seasons, to Jennifer Slept Here. I mean, the only thing that could have been worse is if he moved from One Day at a Time to Mr. Smith.
Hey, I will not have you bad-mouthing the good name of Mr. Smith.
And I will not have you bad-mouthing the good name of Glenn Scarpelli.
I'm being double-teamed.
He is.
Yes, here you are.
I've had the pleasure of speaking to him many times. As far as the great thing known as the internet is, and he's an absolutely amazing gentleman. He really is.
No, I can vouch for it. I know that Kris has spoken to him, or at least I think is connected to him on social media. And yeah, Glenn Scarpelli, from everything I've seen, is a great guy. And we all make bad career moves. So it's totally understandable. It's something that happens. But no,
and plus you also have to take into consideration the 80s was a very eclectic and unique decade when it came to all forms of entertainment, movies, music, and television.
Especially around 1983 to 84. You're absolutely right about that.
Well, yeah. And when you think about it, it's always the center of the decade where the decade's definitions become official. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's true because when you think 80s, you think Miami Vice, you think outrageous hair, the fashion, shoulder pads, and that's all right around that 83, 84, 85 timeline.
Right, because usually it takes a couple of years where they were still emulating the prior decade.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Boy, Kris has been on here for 3 minutes. He's provided more insight than we've done in 3 episodes.
I know,
and I've been awake for about 20 hours, too. Knock, knock.
Ah, there you go.
That takes talent.
Yeah, he has the distinct advantage of being awake more than we are. But yeah, I mean, the 80s was just this whole fantastic time. Judging by all of the entries in our little logbook here.
Yeah, the 80s are quite diverse with not just bad shows, but just unique shows. Shows that the networks just tried to throw on the wall, see if it would stick. Some of them stuck for about a year. Some of them, let's say, like Night Court, stuck around for 9 years.
And some of the pasta that was thrown on the wall had so much sauce it just slid right down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jennifer Slept Here.
Oh. Yeah.
I walked right into that.
Yeah, you totally did.
You New Jersey folks and your pizzas. So the show itself, it really, I don't want to say it was a one-trick pony. I'm sure Kris can overrule me if he wants to about that. But the main thing was Jennifer, played by Ann Jillian. She was a ghost of a former actress, a deceased actress. And this sort of uses the TV trope of only one person can see and hear you. Not unlike The Great Gazoo and Fred Flintstone or Stewie and Brian on Family Guy. So the person who could see Jennifer was this 14-year-old kid named Joey.
By John P. Navin.
Yep.
And actually, that's another name that I've never heard of. The only 2 people I've heard of from this show are Ann Jillian and Glenn Scarkelly.
You've never heard of Georgia Engel?
Oh, Georgia Engel! I totally forgot about her. Yes,
thanks, Chico. I appreciate that. I was just getting ready to throw a Philly.
Oh my!
Yes, Georgia.
She was on frickin' Mary Tyler Moore, and then on the Betty White show.
No, you're absolutely right. I totally forgot about her. I'm sorry. And she did, unfortunately, just pass away within the last few months.
I'm very upset that you don't remember me.
That was Kris's impersonation of Georgia Engel, a ghost that only Mike can see and hear.
You're in trouble now, Michael.
Georgia spoke her? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. And of course, she played the mom, and the dad was played by Brandon Maggart, who was a big movie star before this, but is more than likely known for being Fiona Apple's dad. Oh yeah, and he also did 5 seasons of Brothers on Showtime.
Which is another fantastic show, incidentally.
Which is another great show, absolutely. You'll never hear that on this podcast. What I was looking for was the TV Guide capsule previewing Jennifer Slept Here in 1983. And here's what TV Guide said about Jennifer Slept Here. Jennifer Farrell, Ann Jillian, was a famous movie star. She died about 6 years ago and still has a fatal weakness. Her ghost refuses to move out of her Beverly Hills house. She loves the old haunt, especially when the tour bus comes by, which it does several times a day, and the driver says, when her star vanished, the heavens glowed a little less brightly. Aww.
Don't you just love it?
This has got so much corn, I'm not going to go there. Now the Elliott family moves in from New York. Susan, played by Georgia Engel, George, played by Brandon Maggart, and their 2 children, Joey, 14, played by, as we said, John P. Navin Jr., and Marilyn, age 6, played by Maya Ackerling. Jennifer's ghost is assigned, quote-unquote, to Joey, who most of the time is the only one who can see her. She helps him get through a perilous event. It's called puberty. While Joey's friends, especially Mark, Glenn Scarpelli, wonder why he's talking to thin air a lot. Joey's father, meanwhile, is unimpressed with living in Jennifer Farrell's house. Character Susan, this is a quote. You think all Hollywood actresses sleep their way to the top. George. Even meter maids sleep their way to the top. Ha 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 ha.
Hollywood jokes. Ha 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 ha.
13 episodes. 13 episodes of that.
And you know what else? Within that 13 episodes, in typical 80s fashion, they still managed to have a very special one, too.
Oh, everything was very special in the 80s. So, yeah, that's the capsule that TV Guide put in their 1983 Fall TV preview.
Of course, that was during the pilot, and it was retconned in episode 2 to 20 years ago, which was weird, but whatever.
So, well, what's old is new again, I think.
So, in other words, what you're saying is that Jennifer Slept Here was actually way ahead of its time.
Well, it was both dated and ahead of its time. It's more like a 1980s answer to the Ghost and Mrs. Moore.
Oh, another good show in and of itself, which starred one Charles Nelson Riley, by the way. Had to throw that in there. But yeah, well, it's not necessarily ahead of its time because, as I said earlier, The Great Gazoo and Fred Flintstone did the same thing on the Flintstones. This little Martian would come over Fred Flintstone's shoulder, sort of like his conscience, and oh, you big dummy, don't do this, or you better go get Wilma a bouquet of flowers because you screwed up tonight or whatever. And he would talk, and I don't think it was ever mentioned on the Flintstones. Hey Fred, why are you talking to your shoulder? But still, it's been done. It's still being done, and it'll be done in the future.
And it was done again by NBC later that same decade.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler alert.
And for which show is this?
This was a show called Nearly Departed.
Oh, another possible future entry. Wink, wink, wink.
And Nearly Departed was only on the air for a third of Jennifer Slept Here.
Well, Jennifer Slept Here got rerun to death because as I said earlier, the show ran for almost a full calendar year, a little bit over 10 months, and there were 13 episodes done. So, yeah, I mean, it may have been on less time, but there were probably just as many episodes.
There were a total of 6 that were recorded, and only 4 made it to air. The other 2 did not get to air until, in this country, never. When it was rerun briefly in Australia, the other 2 were shown.
Australia, we're sorry. Okay, now that I got that out of the way.
Oh, wow.
Well, since we have the expert here in the form of Mr. Lane.
Who?
Oh, am I talking about your dad when I call you Mr. Lane?
No, I'll take it. That's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry for being professional for once.
That's quite all right, sir.
So, I'm not a sir, but I take that as a badge of honor, too.
Okay, very good.
So, since we have our expert Kris here, and you've seen all the shows, what was done good? What was good and what was bad about the shows? And if there's nothing good, we could just skip to the bad.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, was the show a masterpiece? Far from it. It was far from a masterpiece. But it was about 24 minutes once a week of being able to escape reality, if you want to call it that. It was just a weird show that made you think, whether you thought it was, what the heck am I watching? Or, okay, that's interesting. If anything else, it was potential for starting conversations. Whether you, everything from the special effects that were used to the storylines that were done, which were, let's face it, for the most part, pretty ridiculous. But you know what? And in some cases, you also have to realize, even though the show was on regular primetime, I sometimes think that in some aspects, it probably would have been better if it had been retooled as a show for either young adults or even younger. Not necessarily with the same cast. Because there was one episode, for example, where she needs to help Jennifer needs to help Joey break into an office to his school, because what had happened was he was writing a letter for typing class. And that goes to show how far back we're going. We're talking he had to type on a typewriter. And he was teasing, having fun with it and calling his teacher all kinds of stuff. Well, his mom accidentally actually mails it instead of the actual one. So then he's like, Jennifer, you can walk through walls. You need to help me get this letter back. Stuff like that makes me think that the show would have been better off if it was targeted at a young adult audience as opposed to an adult audience.
You see, I'm actually going to disagree because I go through that every day in my daily life. Except it's not done by actual letters, by typing. It's either done through private messaging or sometimes it's graffiti on walls. But enough about my life. You do actually bring up a very good point about breaking away from reality. Mm-hmm. Because now that I think about it, that entire the 2 hour block from 8 to 10 o'clock on Friday nights is a giant break from reality, because you have first a talking orangutan with an IQ of 256, then you've got the ghost of a former movie star, a fictional former movie star who only the teenage son can communicate with, and then you have the ultimate fiction, a man who can shapeshift into animals, depending on the situation, to save the day, if you will. So that entire 2 hour block was a giant escape from reality, if you look at it.
So in other words, in that aspect, it was in a way a perfect fit for that block at that time.
Yeah, and actually it was perfect for Friday night, because most people don't have work the next day. My apologies if you do.
That's me.
Yeah, I was going to say that's you and Chico. Unfortunately, us teachers don't have to work on Saturdays. Now you know
why don't you just rub the salt in the wounds a little bit.
Well, now you know why I went to that career path. No, I'm kidding.
And don't forget holidays too.
That's absolutely true. I definitely can understand that. So it was a giant break from reality, and yes, since people don't work on Saturdays generally, with all due respect to both of my counterparts on this show, you don't have the realism that you might see on a show a different day of the week. It's sort of an escape to the weekend. So right. I think that's a great way that you mentioned that.
It also explains most of the TGIF lineup. Again, spoiler alert.
Well, not just TGIF, but also the CBS Block Party. Double spoiler alert. That's another submission we may venture into one day. So I have the 13 episodes here and their plot lines. And again, if Kris wants to chime in with good, bad, indifferent comments about each show, that's more than appreciated.
Let's go down the line. Let's go.
We know what the pilot's about. With Elliot settling into their home, a recently deceased actress, Jennifer Farrell, appears to Joey for the first time and later talks him out of a return trip to New York City to see a girl he had a crush on before relocating to California. Aww. Yeah. Boy, that sounds like my life right about that time when I was about 13, 14 years old. Because that actually happened to me. A girl had a crush on me, and right before we started, really mingling, or when we would have started mingling, she moved to California. Aww. I'm still single. Call me. You know where I'm at. And then episode 2, Jennifer the Movie. A planned biopic on her life leaves Jennifer furious. A rival actress she despised when she was alive will play her. And a key scene to be filmed at her home is altered for tawdry effect.
Very true.
But how tawdry is it?
Basically, her rival was trying to kill her legacy by basically making her out to be the tramp that Brenda Maggard's character always assumed that she was. And they did not get along very well when she was still alive, and it was basically going to be one last F to them. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yes. And what ends up happening is Jennifer does her magic to make it aware that she's around, and And basically, Joey's character is going, I have a couple of connections and I can very easily reverse this whole thing. So you better start giving her a little bit more respect and not alter what was reality.
Boy, that doesn't sound like real life. Catty actresses going after each other.
Well, was Dynasty on the air yet?
83, yes,
it
absolutely.
Was.
There you go.
Not only was it on the air, it was getting its sort of claws ready to pounce, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't,
That
isn't apropos.
Now, don't tell me this isn't like a precursor to The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Maybe a little bit.
Well, in a fictional sense, but right now, what's going on in my mind? That meme from The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills with that woman yelling at the person and the white cat sitting there.
Yep.
that is the best meme ever.
I like that cat.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
Should be noted that, hey, Chris, did they retcon it from 6 years to 20 yet?
I believe,
after the episode? After the pilot? Because I'm imagining a situation where 20 years is not kind to anybody.
You know what? I don't think it was at that point yet.
Okay.
I think it was later on that was given the jumping syndrome as, the Cunningham syndrome, of course. Just that they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
All right, episode 3. Not with my date, you don't. A new girl stands in the way of Joey and Mark, and a pair of concert tickets that the girl actually wants.
Yep.
So apparently they want to go to Oingo Boingo since it's 1983.
Nope.
Was it a fictional band or a real band?
It was Rick Springfield.
Oh, okay. That was the second answer. 1983 is Rick Springfield or Toto or somebody.
Yep, it was Rick Springfield. He was still a little bit hot from General Hospital still, but his music career was already taken off. And basically, they both Mark and Joey, they had a thing for this girl, and she was basically using both of them, toying with both of them.
And was the girl actually trying to play her way to get a date with one person specifically, or was she playing both of them for fools?
She wanted to get with first she wanted to be with Mark because she just had she had the thing going with Mark first. Then what happened was she learns that Joey has Rick Springfield tickets that his parents got him. So then she wants to, he's like, oh, screw that. I want to go out with Joey now because he's got these Springfield tickets. So basically she starts like woozing him over and all that. And ultimately Jennifer steps in, of course, because why not? And basically does everything but call her a hussy. And eventually the two guys go together to the concert.
Ooh, cat's got claws. Typical girl. Trying to get I shouldn't say typical girl. Apologies to the girls out there. It's just my life experiences are different than most. Trying to get the money, trying to get the actual product.
Right.
No, I don't love you for your looks or your sense of humor or your intelligence. I love you for your Rick Springfield tickets.
Yep.
Which one does in the mid-1980s.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, heck yes.
Oh, episode 4, the creatively titled Boo. And we're not talking about somebody's boo, their best friend. It's a ghost. Boo. The ghost of Jennifer's mother, Debbie Reynolds. There's a good name to attach to the show. Pays her daughter a visit, but goes missing after the two have a falling out over the influence the mother had on her daughter's career. To help contact her in a seance, Jennifer agrees to assist Joey in impressing a pair of twin girls. Joey's a little pimp. He had a girl for the concert in the last episode. Now he's trying to impress a pair of twin girls? Oh, yeah. I can't wait until the next episode he goes after triplets.
No, that did not happen, unfortunately. So basically, Jennifer's having a fit, and Joey's like, what's going on? She was like, oh, I think my mother's coming. And sure enough, here she comes, the fabulous Debbie Reynolds, God rest her soul. And they're just clashing from the get-go because she never she didn't believe that Jennifer was doing the proper type of acting work that she should have been doing, and that she always felt that she was being disrespected, even though she wasn't. And long story short, also, the twin girls were next door. I think they were next door. They were down the street. I forget. But both Glenn Scarpelli's character and John P. Navin's character were both trying to get with one of them, and they gave up going to a party to hang out with them, and they were like, "Oh, well, we're going to have a party here," and they started having. Joey had started decorating the house like for Halloween and all that, but they were very unimpressed because it was cheap, tacky decorations. So of course he goes, "Jennifer, I really need some help here. I need to impress these ladies." So she goes, "Okay." So she works her magic and makes the things fly around and all that. And it freaks them out, and of course they, get into their arms and all that. And, typical 80s, I got to get with the girl plot, so how am I going to do it? How am I going to scare her into it?
And you see, the first thing that I thought of when I read this plot line, it predates Jennifer Slept Here by a couple of years, is the movie Mommy Dearest.
Oh, boy.
Love that movie.
Yeah, oh, great movie if you've never seen it.
Great,
but just the falling out thing. Just
Yes.
Christina Crawford and Joan Crawford. I could just see Debbie Reynolds coming out of the closet. No wire hangers.
Well, you know how Debbie Reynolds was. She had that class to her that
She absolutely did. Absolutely. Now I wonder if Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher are clashing or might have clashed. Don't make me bring up that episode Boo of Jennifer Slept Here. I will do that on you, Carrie. No. Oh, episode 5. The reason I say ooh is just looking at the first 2 words of this capsule. Monty Hall. It's an episode called Calendar Girl. Monty Hall has a cameo in an episode that finds Joey discovering a box of Jennifer's unclaimed items, which include a nude photo she posed for early in her career. And when George discovers it and plans to sell it off at an auction at her estate, Jennifer asks Joey to retrieve it.
Yes.
So what did Monty Hall do? Was he the auctioneer? I mean, that would be like a perfect fit for how he was in Let's Make a Deal.
Ironically, he was not an auctioneer. He wanted to buy the nude picture.
Okay.
He wanted to buy the nude picture, so he was there as a patron.
Gotcha.
And it was actually, it was weird because, George's character, how sweet and innocent she always is in her shows. Of course, now George already saw the nude picture and all that, and she's like, "Oh, this thing is the one thing that we're selling for the auction. We need to make the money," and blah, 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 blah. And all George's character was saying, he was like, "Well, why would anybody want that old calendar? 1968 ain't coming anytime again. Why would anybody want that calendar?" Totally oblivious to the fact that she's naked in the picture.
Well, boy, imagine if this was about 13 years later. You've got this thing called eBay where everybody will buy a calendar from 1968.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, what ends up happening is they're able to get the calendar back. And what's funny is that when they said in the listing was that it was a nude photo. So I forget exactly how it happens, but they were able to swap the photo with a nude baby picture.
Seems legit.
Yeah, just like any other time a ghost wants to make sure a painting doesn't go to auction. That's what you do. It's common knowledge.
And this lasted only 13 episodes?
Yeah.
Okay. Only 13 episodes.
Only.
Oh, this could be celebrating its 37th season this year, but no. 13 episodes.
Yeah. I'm detecting a little bit of sarcasm in there, Michael.
A little bit?
All right, a lot.
Oh, we're knee-deep in sarcasm at this point.
Knee-deep in the hoopla. Great record, too.
Episode 6. One of our jars is missing.
I actually liked this episode. I'm going by the almighty knowledge by consensus Wikipedia here. After seeing their son talking to a lamp, George and Susan hire a phony expert on poltergeists, played by Zelda Rubinstein, who played a similar role in the film Poltergeist, to rid the house of Jennifer, and to Joey's shock, it works. Now Joey and Jennifer must convince her to restore Jennifer's power before a letter that Joey accidentally wrote is mailed off. And
there's what Kris
the
was talking
B-plot.
about earlier.
That was the B plot from earlier, Kris.
Yes.
So here's the deal. First of all, Zelda Rubinstein is an absolute riot. She did this so well, obviously from her association with Poltergeist the year before. She basically admits that she's a quack. What happens is she takes her spirit. Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. Joey agrees to do this, not only as a way to have Jennifer prove that she cannot be stopped by a poltergeist. Stopped by a, I guess exorcist. I guess one thing you would call it. I guess.
Yeah.
So he agrees to do it for the sake of his folks. So when she comes out and she's doing it, of course, Jennifer's mocking her, of course, the whole time. And she goes, okay, I've put her spirit into this pickle jar. So she's now in an empty pickle jar. So Joey picks up the pickle jar, and there she is in the pickle jar, and she's having a fit. She's like, first of all, it smells like pickles in here. Just call me Mrs. Clausen. She was just not liking it. Well, what ended up happening is he, going back to the letter, has to go grab the letter. And what happens is they go over to, what do you call it? The way that it works is they're able to get her out of the jar. Joey was able to get her out of the jar just by unscrewing it, so she got out of the jar. But the problem is that she was getting ready to disappear because what Zelda's character had done was literally exorcise her. So they go over to her and they're like, asking her, you have to help me, you have to help me. And Zelda's character is going, well, I have no problem with that, but there's only one problem. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, quote unquote. So she's like, basically, I am a performer. I go to a couple of parties. I make a couple of bucks. I don't know what I'm doing. So ultimately, they are able to reverse the spell, and the day is saved.
Yay.
You have just as much enthusiasm as Michael did a minute ago. And I know we both are thinking,
and that's not sarcasm.
I know we both are thinking, this crazy guy knows all this about a simple show that was like from 1983.
No, seriously, it's like one of those things. It's like that. It's like this plot, this episode was what drew me to look up more about this show.
I would probably say that this was one of the better episodes in the whole series. I think that one was probably the best one.
Well, also, I'm going to add, and this is by no means is demeaning, but everybody is an expert at something. Everybody loves something so much that they know so much about the topic. I mean, if we're talking about TV shows, I absolutely love The Critic from 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. Spoiler, that might be coming up in the near future. So the thing is, just because you know so much about a goofy 13-week sitcom, I mean, that's no reflection on your character. I mean, that's actually something that's the reason I brought you here, because I knew you're such a big fan of the show. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that.
And it's actually funny because, I mean, obviously I was too young when the show was on. It's never been rerun. A former friend of mine, we were hanging out one day, and we played that game, where let's grab a VHS tape with no label and see what's on it, which is always good for a laugh and fun. And one of the episodes of Jennifer Slept Here was on that tape. And I was like, what show is this? And he was like, oh, where do you see this cornball show? So I watched the episode and I thought it was crazy. And that was when I scoured the internet and was trying to find the episodes, and I was ultimately able to find them. And then that just kind of started my whole liking for finding strange and unusual shows.
And that's sort of why we're here. Absolutely.
So pretty much Jennifer Slept Here is what got me interested in looking up more information about short-lived, forgotten sitcoms.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all gone down that rabbit hole at some point. We see something on some web page or some blog, and then, I got to look at this show a little more, see what this is all about. And then next thing you know, 5 hours later, you've watched all 13 episodes.
Yep.
And truthfully, between myself and Chico and Greg, while we're doing all the submissions and ideas for future shows, that has brought us down many a rabbit hole. And I can even admit, yesterday I went down one such hole yesterday during my lunch period for an episode, which actually we're not going to do it until I think July. Yeah, I'm not going to give the name of the show, but it's for an episode we have slated for July of 2020. And I just, and it's kind of interesting revisiting this show because I had told Greg and Chico I had stumbled across an episode of this show on YouTube maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I couldn't last about 3 minutes into it. It looked so corny and cheap. And that may actually be a little bit of a hint towards who the producer of the show was, corny and cheap. But then I went back yesterday and it's like, this really isn't bad. It's a little goofy. It's, again, done on the cheap. But, it's really not a bad show. And then, so I know exactly what you're talking about, just going into one of those situations where you're like, okay, this is some goofy show. Oh, it's actually sort of interesting or it catches my eye somehow. And then suddenly, next thing you know, you've watched all 13 episodes a dozen times.
Yep, that's pretty much how I'm able to recite these from memory.
Well, again, like I said, everybody does that. Or not everybody, but there's certain shows that people do that with. Like I said, The Critic is one of my favorites, and that was only on for 2 seasons. And there's other shows I have on DVD which lasted 6 shows or 13 shows.
And I have
so I totally
I have
get
one
it.
of them en route. I can't wait.
Episode 7. So here's the halfway point, the median. Trading faces. Jennifer discovers that she has the ability to enter other people's bodies. So she uses Susan so she can rekindle a former mortal flame.
Yes, she does. Basically, it starts off with Joey and Jennifer watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers on TV. So he's going, hey, Farrell, can ghosts really do that? And she's like, no, it's ridiculous. And Joey's like, well, have you ever actually tried it? And she said, no, but I don't think that it could actually work. Enter little sister, annoying little sister. And Joey's like, hey, give it a shot. You got nothing to lose. So she enters the little sister's body, and of course she has her, her ridiculous, I've played some small venues in my life, but this is ridiculous. And then she learns that she can very easily enter other people's bodies. And she starts having fun with it. She entered Glenn Scarpelli's character, and walks up to Joey and goes, I've never mentioned before, but you have beautiful eyes. And of course he's freaking out because he's like, what are you talking about? Then here comes Jennifer out. Ha ha, I fooled you. And ultimately what ends up happening is there was an old flame of hers that happened to be in town and went to the house. And she was like, I really never got a chance to say goodbye. I really wish that I could have. So she enters George's character and basically is able to tell him goodbye. That was her way of making closure, because that would be the only way. Because when she did enter the other bodies, they were able to see her here when she had control. So that was her way of saying goodbye to an old flame.
This entire episode is basically the entire plot line of the series Automan, which we covered in the second half of last week. But I mean, that's exactly what it is, because you had the main character, Desi Arnaz's character in Automan, merging into Automan's hologram body, and that was more to become vehicles or stuff like that. But still, it's the same plot line, which I find very interesting.
Now, I'm trying to think. Was Automan before, after, or during?
Automan premiered just after. The original air date of this episode was December 2nd of 83, and Automan premiered 2 weeks later, I want to say. I don't know the exact date. It's on episode 3 from last week. Go back to episode 3. You can figure out what date it premiered. But it did premiere mid-December of 83, so it was not far after
that's
this episode.
Really close. That's really close.
Very close.
I never thought of that. That's really close.
Episode 8, Rebel with a Cause. With Jennifer's help, Joey is able to take care of a bully, and in the process acquire his entire lifestyle.
Now, would this be the very special episode?
No.
Oh.
I'm just wondering what his entire lifestyle is.
Basically, in the series, Joey's pretty clean cut, and he what happens is he's getting bullied in school, and what happens is Jennifer actually fought for him, like physically fought for him, like threw him around and all that. The bully is thinking that Joey's the one doing it, so he basically leaves him alone, and essentially he's now the rebel now instead of being the clean cut. And then Jennifer ultimately decided, and of course there was a girl involved, of course, at one point, and ultimately he learns that this isn't really for me. I really can't fight even if I wanted to. So basically, he pretty much ends it because Jennifer doesn't want to help him anymore either, because she's like, you got to be yourself. You shouldn't be somebody that you're not. And ironically, no, this is not the special episode.
And actually, this is the last episode in 1983. It was December 16th of 83. And it went on, I'm going to assume, either hiatus or reruns, and then returned in April of 1984 with 5 new episodes.
That's correct.
Episode 9, Risky Weekend. With the rest of the family away, Joey keeps an eye on the house, but a sailboat moored in the backyard crashes into the dining room. To help pay for repairs, he agrees to let the repairman use the house for a bingo game. That is, until Joey and Jennifer discover that it's really a gambling operation.
Like they couldn't tell that from the very beginning. And incidentally, this was the first episode that I saw.
And again, another plot being recycled, because Bob's Burgers did it like 2013 when the kids take over the restaurant. They decided to run an underground casino until mom and dad come home and are like, what is this? And then the landlord comes by, Mr. Fishoder, and says, oh, if you're running a gambling operation, I'm going to need you to pay rent or something like that, since it's more than just a restaurant.
Right.
And ultimately, it became a sort of double or nothing wager, doing rock, paper, scissors for like 6 months of back rent or something like that. So again, another episode that's been done, not necessarily done to death, but another tie I see there, which is interesting.
Right. Basically, Joey's parents go away, and I forget how the boat ended up in the house, but it broke through the house. Not unlike Stephanie Tanner when she drove Joey's car into the name Joey again. Drove it into the car into the kitchen, but so they need to repair the wall before the parents get home. So I forget exactly who it was, but they did start a bingo thing going on over there, and it was for gambling. At the very end, they wanted to take all the money, and they weren't going to leave them with anything. They were just going to use the house, and ultimately Jennifer was able to get the money out because she was obviously able to say, this is the card you got to play. This is what they got, Yeah,
I'm just thinking about how that boat got into the house, and this actually just came to mind. It's very coincidental, since the time we're recording this is right around the 7th anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. Just wondering, with all that rain, might it have just floated into the house? I'm just hypothesizing here, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned the whole plot line. Given that it's November 2nd, and my house was severely affected right around that time by Superstorm Sandy, I totally would understand if that was the case.
I want to say that the boat was on a trailer, and the trailer lost control.
Feasible. Okay.
I want to
Plausible.
say. I want to say that the boat was being transported, and whoever was driving the boat lost control.
Okay, that makes sense.
I actually don't remember that one. I'll have to look that up later.
Episode 10. Do you take this ghost? Oh, I mean, we can just look at that title and we know what it's going to be about. Somebody's getting married.
Somebody's getting married. Yeah. Jennifer's former Playboy boyfriend. How many former Playboy boyfriends does Jennifer Farrell have? Anyway,
the same number of girlfriends that Joey has.
Cool. Jennifer's former Playboy boyfriend, who is also a ghost, wants to revive the relationship they had when they were alive. Eve McVeigh made a guest appearance.
So Brandon Mygard and George's characters, they decide to renew their wedding vows. And the way that it works was, since Jennifer and her old flame never really got to, do anything or get married, they decided to take that same ceremony so that they can have their own pseudo ceremony.
Now, was this done like in the ghost world, or was there actually like a living minister or justice of the peace who was doing this?
There was a living minister that was doing the renewal of the vows. And while he was renewing the vows, they were basically like right in front of them doing their own recognition.
But they were still in ghost form, though, so he could see the ghosts?
No, he couldn't see the ghosts. The priest had absolutely no idea that they were even there. They were just taking advantage of the fact that there was going to be somebody there performing such a ceremony. So they just took advantage of it. They couldn't, obviously it wasn't official, obviously, because they were dead. But basically it was just a thing where, like, okay, well, since this is going on now, I don't want to say the word pretend, but let's, just do it at the same time so we can know what it felt like to go through such a ceremony.
How absurd.
That one was not one of my favorites at all.
I wonder why. That's just...
See, even I have standards.
Not many, but you do have some.
Yes.
But that just doesn't make any sense. How a justice of the peace... Again, I'm not wrapping my mind around it. It's too early in the morning, and I no, it's just too weird. Episode 11, Life with Grandfather. George's father pays a visit, but when he dies unexpectedly... Oh, another ghost in the house. Great. The Elliots finally have kind things to say about him that they never told him when he was alive. And I'm guessing the father did turn into a ghost, and he was there to hear all the praise they heaped on him?
Not necessarily. First of all, this is the one that would be considered the very special episode, incidentally.
Okay.
Basically, the grandfather shows up, and he's trying to, hang out with everybody, but everyone's just too busy for him. Joey was too busy. He was George's father, and he was too busy for him. And it was always one of those things like, okay, well, we'll hang out tomorrow. We'll do stuff tomorrow, that sort of thing. Well, he is up in the attic, which is incidentally where Jennifer Farrell's room was after she was a ghost. It was the attic. So he's up in the attic, the grandfather, and doing like a chemistry experiment because he loved to have things blow up for some reason. Well, he blows up too much and he blows himself literally up to death. So Jennifer runs up to the attic and is going, oh my God, now the attic is all totally destroyed. And she's like, are you all right? And he says, oh yeah, I had a little bit too much boom boom. And they start talking. And then she's like, wait a minute, you can hear me and see me? And he goes, wait a minute, aren't you Jennifer Farrell? I thought you were dead. And she was like, well, guess what we have in common? So what ultimately happens is at that point, later in this show, they're watching home movies. And they're all saying, we really regret, we wish that we could have been able to talk to him and all that. And in the middle of that, Joey runs up to his bedroom and he starts saying, Grandpa, Grandpa. And Jennifer's like, I knew this was coming. And he was like, all right, where is he? If I can talk to you and see you, where is he? And she's like, it doesn't work that way. And then he was like, it's not fair. You need to change this. I want to be able to say goodbye to him. I need to say, that I'm going to miss him and all that. And he was like, will you just, shut up and let me talk to him? And she was like, I can't. She's like, this is why you got to appreciate the people that are in your life while they're still around. And so then ultimately he just starts talking to him, hoping that he can hear him. And of course he breaks down the very end and end of story.
I don't know. At least for me, that plot line sort of hits home. That sounds like the most realistic plot line.
I think anybody that has ever lost anybody, whether it's a parent, a friend, they've always had that one desire. Man, I wish I could talk to them one more time. I feel that way with my mom all the time.
Oh, yeah, so do I.
Absolutely.
And I know you do, Mike, too, with everyone in your family also.
Well, and I mean, when you're talking about this, the first, and it's kind of coincidental that the title of this episode is Life with Grandfather, because the one thing that went through my mind was my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away just over 30 years ago, and I would have been about the same age as the main character on Jennifer Slept Here, the teenage son.
Right.
I would have been about 14 as well,
Mm-hmm.
and even to this day, 30 plus years later, I still have regrets about things that I didn't do with my grandfather. Where I wish I could have said, just one last time, can we go fishing or can we go, do this and so this is like hitting really hard for me. This is hitting home.
Yeah, I'm one of those. I did have a tear in my eye when this was going on, and I think anyone that's ever been really close to anybody and had this and had them die, I really do think that it would hit home no matter who you are. It is definitely the most realistic of the plots of the 13 shows. And, and they tried to incorporate a little bit of humor in it, of course, obviously, but it was like after the second half started, it was like Steel Magnolias at the friggin', at the cemetery. It was just downhill as far as, as far as the comic relief, it went downhill. The seriousness shot through the roof.
I know the show was essentially, excuse the phrase, the pun, I know it was dead from the start. Yeah. But I just wonder if this episode aired instead of in late April of '84, if this was one of the first few episodes that was done, might it have saved the show? If there is some sort of realism, something that people can connect with, could it maybe have saved the show? I don't know, but the thing is,
I also want to say, I think this one was recorded a lot earlier as far as the production number was concerned. I think it was one of the earlier ones recorded. I might be wrong on that. But for whatever reason, they held off on airing it until later.
Which I think it's a big mistake. I think really if there's any way you can get your characters or your viewers to connect with characters, you definitely do it from the start.
It's always a death or a birth in a sitcom where people start to connect.
And the thing is that they saved this until late summer of '84, and again, by that time, we'll get into the ratings in a little bit. But needless to say, the show was not going to make it to a second season. I just wonder if the episodes were placed in a different order, if maybe they could have drawn some more viewers, even though you had a bad show before Jennifer Slept Here, and you had probably a worse show after Jennifer Slept Here.
Right.
So that was our very special episode, and yes, after hearing that and just getting a little emotional, that is a very special show, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed it is.
And now I know what I'm going to be looking for on YouTube after we finish this recording.
Yep.
If it's up there. Episode 12, The Tutor Who Came to Dinner.
Yes.
When a new tutor appears to help Joey, Jennifer becomes jealous of her, and for good reason, as the tutor, played by Gail Edwards, who was also on It's a Living with Ann Jillian, is actually Jennifer's spiritual replacement.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, there seems like there's a little bit to unpack here, so go for it.
Yeah, we went from incredibly serious, incredibly relatable plotline to... Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so here's the deal. As you just said, yes, it starred Gail Edwards, who played Dot in It's a Living, which I always wondered, that had to be fun, because I believe It's a Living was off the air during that 1 year. I think that was when it was transitioning from network to syndication, I think.
It was a little more than a year, but It's a Living got canceled, I believe, in 82 or 83, and then it returned in syndication in 85.
Okay. So, first of all, having them reunited had to be interesting if you were a fan of It's a Living at the time. So basically, here's the deal. The powers that be were trying to say that Jennifer was a bad influence on Joey, that she was not treating him, she wasn't being a proper muse, a proper guide, as it were. So Gail Edwards' character was sent to be her replacement. And it was one of those scenarios where Jennifer's like, I don't understand how you can possibly say that I am a bad influence on Joey. Well, Gail Edwards grabs a tape player and is playing basically nothing but Jennifer barking at Joey about petty things. And essentially what happens is that Joey does not want Jennifer to leave because they had already gotten close at this point. And Jennifer's like, well, I don't know what we can do. So Joey was like, well, what if I can make it so that you do something that is amazing for me? Like I can show her how I can be so very difficult. Like I can have little fits, let's, see how good she can handle me. I can really, play it up. So he starts playing it up, like, I need this, I need that, I have demands. And Jennifer's going, you better do this because he's going to have fits until you do what he tells you. So she starts doing it Gail Edwards' character starts doing it for a couple of minutes. And then she was like, you know what? Do you really think that I'm that stupid that I don't know what you two are doing? And ultimately, in the end, Gail Edwards' character is like, but you know what? The fact that the two of you obviously care enough about each other to go through all this trouble, obviously you guys need each other, so I'm going to get out of here.
Nice.
Speechless.
Ironically, Gail Edwards was using not necessarily sex appeal for Joey in the very beginning to get him to get on her side, but let's face it, she was kind of flaunting it a little bit in the beginning.
And that takes us to the final episode. Take Jennifer, please. This sounds like it was written by Henny Youngman. Take my wife, please. Fed up with having his father not believing that he can see Jennifer, Joey must find a way to convince him otherwise, even if it means having Jennifer prove her presence before the entire family. So Jennifer tells Joey that she'll help him if Joey can produce the real will she wrote, which is located in George's office safe.
Right.
Now, wait a second. Well, okay, now there's no way she could have gotten the will out of the safe, but couldn't she go into the safe to look at the will?
Well, here's the thing. The whole point of the story was that there was no will. She had never written a will. And it was a phony will that somebody was cracking up to try to get her belongings. So it was a fake will. And what happened was, this is also the episode where we learn how Jennifer died. Have we discussed that yet?
No, we haven't.
No, we have not.
Okay, so here's what happened. In the middle of all this, Joey's like, I really wish whatever. And she was like, well, anyway, it should be mentioned that George's character is a lawyer. So he found the will and he was trying to do what was right with the will. But Jennifer's going, I never had a will. Now, the way that she was like, did I ever tell you how I died? And he was like, no, you never told me. She had written a letter stating what she really wanted done, which was nothing. She was on her way to mail this letter that proved that there was no will. There was no active will because it wasn't finalized. While she was walking to the post office or wherever she was going to her mailbox or whatever, she got run over by an ice cream truck.
Oops.
As she says on the show, she was creamed by a creamsicle. So anyway, the point is that the letter that she was mailing was going to be proof that there was no official will yet. And the problem is that she knew that it was in the office, but she didn't know where in the office it was. Didn't know if it was in a safe, didn't know if it was, because his office was an absolute mess. So they were finally able to get the paper, which cleared her name with there not being will. So, basically, they inherited everything.
Okay.
Now, there's only one thing I can say about this, and now I can see why this series was canceled, because one phrase comes to mind right now. If there's a will, there's a way they get renewed.
Boo!
I'm sorry, could you say it a little louder for the people in the back?
Oh, you mean for the cheap seats?
I'm sorry. I had to do that. No regrets.
5, Mike Klaus.
So yeah, that was Jennifer slept here. The ratings were horrible. I mentioned this on. I'm
Did it
sorry.
actually do better in reruns than it did in its actual run?
It did, and actually, I was going to get to that. We mentioned on a previous episode, I believe it was the Mr. Smith episode, that the week of Mr. Smith's final episode, which would have been, I believe, the 16th of December, Mr. Smith was the 63rd rated show out of 65 shows that week. And 61st was either Manimal or Jennifer Slept Here, and the other one of those three was 59th. So already in 3 months into the season or 2 months into the season, Jennifer Slept Here was in the bottom 10% of the ratings. And we mentioned also that in summer of '84, it got rerun twice. It was rerun on Wednesdays and also on Fridays. And the ratings actually did manage to break the top 30. However, it really didn't make much of a difference because for the 1983-84 season, Jennifer Slept Here was ranked 89th.
Oh, wow. That show is dead in the water.
Yeah.
That's how you make a pun, Mike.
Hey, I liked my "if there's a will, there's a way" pun. Just because you don't, not my fault, you don't have any taste. But talking about this show, might we see it in reruns? For 13 episodes, it's not going to be on TV ever again, probably.
No, I would find that very I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell, which is probably where Jennifer ended up.
Oh, jeez! and you're complaining about my puns?
Nice.
Oh, my God.
Very nice, Chris.
Well,
it's all in the delivery, my friend.
And I didn't deliver, obviously. Well, Jennifer Slept Here was partially produced by Columbia Pictures Television, which means it's under the Sony umbrella, which means, there's an app that Sony has called Crackle. Might it somehow one day appear on Crackle? Because sometimes they show some really weird stuff on there. I've just thrown that up in the air. I mean, we've sort of gone this route with most every show, saying, this is under the Viacom umbrella or the Disney umbrella, and you've got Disney Plus coming out, and what if Viacom, or CBS All Access we talked about, what if they decide to put it on there one day? You never know, and it seems like a lot of these corporations, companies, are digitizing their holdings, not necessarily just for an on-demand market or Amazon Prime or similar, but also just to archive them. Because obviously digital stuff takes up a lot less space than an actual tangible cassette or film reel.
Right. Plus the deterioration from decades of storage. Even if they're stored properly, we are now learning as time goes on, just how severely damaged film can be. We're also learning in recent years just how the lifespan of CD and DVDs are. We're learning that the earliest ones of them are starting to now fail. So it's all a matter of how can we preserve what we have done already. And right now, digital is the way.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're absolutely right, because weren't like Johnny Carson's tapes stored in like a salt mine in Kansas or something like that? And they're going to degrade. It's just it's basic chemistry. Right. Everything has a half-life. Everything has some sort of recommended temperature or environmental settings.
Right.
And gosh knows that with the entire debate of global warming over the last 30, 40 years, stuff is going to just be unplayable. Plus also, on top of that, just the just based on the obsolescence, the antiquity of equipment. I mean, if stuff was filmed on 2 or 3 inch tapes back in the 70s, they don't make those machines. They haven't made those machines probably in 40 or 45 years. You have no way to watch them.
You don't even have to go back that far. You can go back about a dozen years. Not many people even have VHS decks anymore.
Oh, no. And actually, it's kind of funny. I was just thinking the other day, I could actually use a VCR to look through some of my old tapes, and I think the only functional VCR I have is one that I know hasn't been used in at least, I would say, 13 years, which was my grandmother's.
Uh-huh.
So who knows if even that works? Maybe it needs some oil or WD-40 in order to get working.
It's one of those, when it comes to home VHS, it's one of those things where you kind of wish a lot more people took the Sally Struthers route and took TV VCR repair, because in this day and age, the only way to preserve some of these is if, and I'm saying this as somebody that collects computers and gaming consoles from the 70s and 80s, the only way to make sure that they're going to continue to work is to learn how to maintain them internally.
That's absolutely true. They don't make them anymore. They stopped making VHS decks 2 or 3 years ago.
Right. Now I have, like, for example, I have an Apple II right next to me. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at it right now. If that thing fails, if I don't know how to fix it, it's going to cost me a couple $100s to get another one, if I can find one in that condition.
If you can find one, period. I mean, I'm sure it's not that hard. You can find it on eBay or someplace, but then you get into shipping it, and shipping an Apple IIe is not going to be cheap.
Right. Plus, you have to realize, do you want to spend $300 for a new Apple II when it's a $5 part that needs to be replaced?
Right.
So when it comes to preservation, you know, the best thing that you can do, and this goes out to anybody regardless of what their hobby may be, if it involves anything that plugs in, the best thing that you can do is to learn how it works from the inside and learn how to do your own repairs for preservation of anything.
You're absolutely correct about that.
Great insight.
Very good, yes. Well, we're going to do a little postscript on Jennifer Slept Here. We've gone through the episodes. We've gone through the history. Well, the first thing I want to bring up is we talked before we started recording about the theme song. And I think we are diametrically opposed on the feelings of the theme song. Kris, I think you really enjoyed it.
It was good, corny 80s cheese.
Okay, and that's the reason I didn't like it, but also
pasteurized processed cheese product.
Let me put it this way. There's two different types of cheese products. We have your Velveetas, and then we have that Kraft crap in the green cans.
This is the crap in the green cans.
This is the leftover bottom that you find in the back of the fridge about 3 years later of that green canned Kraft cheese.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing. I might not like the Kraft cheese, but I like other corniness. Let me just put it that way.
Well, and now that you make that comparison to Velveeta and the crappy, are you basically suggesting government cheese?
Let me put it this way. Not even rations, not even survival rations from the 50s.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So the thing I wanted to say was the person who actually did the theme song was a gentleman named Joey Scarberry, who we talked about earlier. He is best known for probably one of the best theme songs ever. One that actually hit the charts.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air.
Co-written by Mike Post, the king of the theme song.
Yep.
Well, and this is the theme song to the short-lived but really great The Greatest American Hero back in, I think it was about 81, 82. Mm-hmm. Best theme song ever. And I'm going to sort of rank this. The Greatest American Hero theme, believe it or not, it isn't Velveeta. It is like upper class Brie or Gruyere or whatever. The best cheese in the world is that. And then right around the time that that Jennifer Slept Here aired, he did work on one of Kris's favorite specials. I know this. It's Flash Beagle, Charlie Brown.
Hey, he's the champion. He's the best. Impossible to tame. All right.
So that right there, Flash Beagle is your Velveeta.
That shows my taste in cheese.
But still, that's the Velveeta. That's the lower middle tier or middle tier of cheeses. And then Jennifer Slept Here is like 3 floors below the sub-basement. It isn't even like deserving of having the word cheese. I'm sorry. I got through the theme about 10 seconds of the theme, maybe even less than that, because it was just so. Oh.
All right, now let's.
And I had to actually ask myself, this is the same guy who did The Greatest American Hero.
Now,
I mean, they're just so horrible.
Now, continuing on with the opening credits, what did you think about the Young and the Restless style sketching?
I
What if I
liked
said
it.
I didn't really pay attention to that?
I was a fan of the Young and the Restless sketching, actually.
Because that's the type of sketching that was done for the opening of Jennifer Slept Here.
Yes. Oh, it's very similar. Like I said, I didn't really pay much attention to it. I was still like racking my brain over how bad the theme song was. but no, it was definitely a unique type of way to introduce the credits.
Well, try next time you go to watch one. Try watching the opening credits muted.
You actually think I'm going to go revisit this show after today?
Oh, you have to. You have to watch Grandfather.
I'm going to look at the Grandfather episode. I really seriously will try to look for if it's online. Which, based on the other episodes, it looks like they are online. It's online somewhere. Yeah. But also, I mean, think about, and this is going to parallel another NBC show in the early '80s. Remember how the opening to Family Ties was? It wasn't really a sketch more than a painting.
Yes.
Yeah. And this was seasons 2 through 4, I think.
Yeah, I think it was until another spoiler for another future episode. Until they had the little kid who magically grew up to be like 6 years old in 1 year.
Hey, TV is magic.
Oh, we're going to get into some of the magic and goofiness in future episodes, but that's been the topic of a conversation between myself, Chico, and Greg, is just how magically the little boy on Family Ties who was born, I think it was the 85-86 season or 84-85, how he suddenly became like 4 or 5 years old in the next season.
Same with Growing Pains.
Same with Growing Pains. We talked about that as well, absolutely. But bringing it back on track here, regarding the actors themselves, we talked about Georgia Engel. She just passed away this past April. I apologize for leaving her out when I was mentioning the cast earlier.
As you should have.
She is a legend. I mean, you may not know the name, but you definitely know the face, and you definitely know the voice. So, and then Ann Jillian, she went through a lot right after Jennifer Slept Here.
Yeah.
She's been through a lot since. In 1985, she had a cancer scare at 35. So young.
Yep.
And she had a mastectomy done in 1985. She formally retired as an actress in 2000. And her last appearance was on an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. And really, she's been sort of out of the limelight since, I would really say, since like the late 80s. I remember as a kid hearing a lot about her cancer scare, and then it seemed like around 87, 88, you didn't hear much of her anymore.
Right. Now, she did have that other show, the Ann Jillian show. I believe that was late 80s.
Yeah, that was about 1988. She played the police officer.
Right,
Yeah.
88, 89, yeah.
Yep.
But she's essentially been out of the limelight since then, and she hasn't even there's no credits to her name over the last almost 20 years. But she'd be 70 at this point. She has a well-deserved retirement.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. She, as much as maybe Kris might make fun of her, she was a very decent actress throughout the entirety of the 80s outside of her medical scare.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, It's a Living still reruns nowadays on Logo, so it couldn't have been that bad.
And it's going to be joining Antenna TV in January.
Very nice.
Which we do have here in Raleigh, so.
You do or you don't?
We do.
Oh, okay.
I do and I don't. Cleveland does carry Antenna TV. The problem is I can't get Antenna TV on my cable system, nor can I get it through a satellite, even though I live 15 miles away from downtown Cleveland.
How about another?
And I live on a hill, so go figure. I can't get satellite reception on a hill.
Not even an over-the-air antenna?
I've tried. I've tried numerous times.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I have had very bad luck with antennas, and I was thinking about getting a full-fledged antenna on the roof, but I ultimately said to myself, why am I going to waste the money if I can't get any of these digital stations?
Right. Like, I've been wanting to do that too. Unfortunately, Philadelphia is the closest city for me, and that's 45 miles away. And I live in the woods. I have a 1-story house. I'm surrounded by 2-story houses. It was not happening.
Yeah, you're not getting anything out there. I'm sorry.
No. So I'm kind of stuck with cable, unfortunately.
Well, some cable systems do carry antenna TV. I know my father's does, so maybe you just need to find the right provider.
Right. Now, of course, in my area, you have a choice: Comcast or nothing.
Boy, that's not much of a choice.
No, I mean, if you want to go cable, we don't have access to Fios around here. Of course, we could go through the dishes if we want to, but even that, it's a gamble in some areas.
And as we mentioned earlier, Glenn Scarpelli is doing well. He is actually, as I said, either friends or friends of Kris and myself, and is actually very active when talking with a mutual friend of ours.
Absolutely.
And he is a big supporter of, obviously he is homosexual. He's obviously a big supporter of the gay rights movement. He's been a very big influence on a number of friends of ours. Very big influence.
Right. And let me see, what else could I say about him? Are you aware that he had released a record?
What?
I did not know that.
He released a record. It was actually kind of funny. We were talking a couple of weeks ago, and for those that do not know, let me tell you, I have a little radio program at my college radio station where I play 80s music, and he had released a record, self-titled record, and there was one single released. It was called "Get a Love On," and it was kind of like a dancey R&B style. It didn't do well in the charts, but I actually played it on my show a couple of times. And when I told Glenn that I had played it on my show, he was like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I played it." I showed him a copy of the log, and he was like, "That is so fun. I don't even think my songs were ever played on the radio, let alone in 2019." And so he got a real kick out of that when I showed him the logs. He was like, "That is so cool, seeing my name on a radio station log after all these years." And in recent years, he has been working on a segment on his local cable system. It's called Sedona Now Television, and it's just like a little thing that he does in regards to producing local content, which is kind of a rarity in this day and age when you think about it. Everything is so national anymore. So he's been working on some local television station segments for a little production that he's been doing in recent years.
Sweet.
Well, it's good he's still in the business. That's great.
Yeah, he enjoys it.
Superb. Well, that wraps up Jennifer Slept Here. Before we go, I know Kris just mentioned his radio show. Would you like to do a more formal plug?
Sure. The name of the program is called The Vinyl Countdown. I got the name from Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I thought that was a kick-ass name for a record store, and I was like, "Man, that would be a great name for a radio show." It's on the air currently it's on every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. In the southeastern Jersey area, it's on 107.9 WRML, but it is also available online at WRMLradio.org. It's on Wednesday nights from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. The entire show is dedicated to music of the 80s.
Nice.
Now I hope you don't get sued by Rockstar Games for using their name.
Well, well, guess what? I'm not the only one that uses that name, so let's have some fun.
Oh, there you go. You're going to just point at somebody else. He did it before me, Mr. Teacher.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, that works really well in my classroom, Kris. I'm just telling you that right now.
I'm sorry, Mr. Klaus.
But yeah, I will vouch. Kris does a great job. And he's been doing this for some time, and he is a kid of the 80s. Let's just admit that. He is a true kid of the 80s. He loves that time era, the music, the television. He does a great job. Please, listen to him.
Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. In terms of plugging for us, as always, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/itwasathingontv, on Instagram at instagram.com /itwasathingontv. on Tumblr at itwasathingontv.tumblr.com, and we're on Twitter at, guess what? Twitter.com/itwasathingontv. And as always, you can find all the episodes of the podcast on iTunes, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and at our website, which is itwasathingontv.podbean.com.
I was just about to say, Kris Lane, feel free to come back anytime.
I would love to. I had a great time. Thanks for having me, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I had such a fun time.
You are definitely a friend of the show. You feel free to let us know when you'd like to return. Also, one little correction / update from last week before we go. I had mentioned that people would watch Manimal if Simon McCorkindale had ever turned into a nice animal, a kitty cat or a puppy dog. Well, guess what? Simon McCorkindale transformed into a kitty cat on the Manimal pilot.
This cannot be stressed enough.
This cannot be overemphasized. Right in your face, Greg. He was a little kitty cat in an episode.
Meow.
And it still didn't save the show.
Meow.
Well, that wraps up not just this episode of It Was the Thing on TV, but also, if you noticed, there was a little commonality between the 4 episodes we've done thus far. Match Game Hollywood Squares, Manimal. I'm not going to include Automan for an obvious reason. Mr. Smith and Jennifer Slept Here. Those shows were 1983 bombs, not necessarily bombs, but there were shows on NBC in 1983/84. And actually, one of the goals we have for this podcast is we're going to be giving you sort of thematic blocks of episodes. It may be 4 episodes like this. It may be 2 episodes. We've got certain special episodes along the way, but starting next week, we're going to start a new block of episodes. I'm not going to tell you the theme of those episodes, but you'll have at least, I think we have 4 episodes. You'll have, I got it somewhere. I'll take a look at it later. You'll have 4 episodes of the theme. Plus, actually, we're going to be doing a bonus episode unrelated to that theme for Thanksgiving. And so you'll get the week of Thanksgiving, the week of the 23rd or 24th, you'll get a normal thematic episode and a bonus episode, like a mini-sode, if you will. So keep your eyes out for that. See if you can identify the mystery theme. It shouldn't be that hard. Again, as always, thank you, Chico, for helping us out. Greg, thank you for helping. And Kris, again, whenever you want to come back, let us know. You are more than welcome to come back with your insight.
Awesome. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
And most of all, thank you for listening to the podcast.
Hello, It Was a Thing on TV listeners. It is your manager, Todd Weber, here to tell you all about everything that's going on in the Place to Be Nation pop feed of podcasts. Hard-traveling fanboys are looking at Arrow Month every week this month. This week, they've got a look at the pilot episode from 2012. We've also got This Week in the NFL. Roger and Johnny recapping the last set of games, previewing the upcoming weekend's batch. I am sure surprised that Baltimore lost, but I'm very happy that the 49ers won. We'll see how they do against Green Bay. Kevin and Mary, brother and sister, they host the Brother and Sister Rewatch podcast. On the latest episode, they cover episodes 11 and 12 of Season 4 of The Office, featuring Dwight going out for a night out, and he gets lucky. Go Dwight. On the latest Diamond Conversations, Chad B's show, Man of Steel, Mike Verna, pro wrestler, talks about being a baseball coach at Kingsborough Community College, Brooklyn, New York. They also talk about the cheating scandals with the Houston Astros and the Boston Red Sox. Oh, poor Boston Red Sox. On the latest show, It Was a Thing on TV. Hey, that's this show. Last week we talked about Match Game and Hollywood Squares, and then they talked about Mr. Smith. This is a great show. If you're liking it, check out the previous shows on our feed. It Was a Thing on TV. We're sure happy to see them every Wednesday here on Place to Be Nation podcast feed. Last week we also had Looking Forward, Looking Back. Andy Atherton, the host, was joined by Tim Capel, Jennifer Smith, Scott Criscolo, They previewed the upcoming winter and spring movie releases. Birds of Prey, going to be very interesting. There was a special Skywalker Saga proper farewell where Scott Criscola was joined by a massive litany of guests to discuss the legacy of the Star Wars franchise from the beginning up to the end of Episode 9. And Marvel Age Podcast, a show that I'm on. We talked about Part 3 of 1972 Marvel Comics. Things like Ghost Rider, things like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Thor, you know the deal. Check out Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed. Includes a dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE through yesteryear, including Place to Be Podcast, the main event, Wrestling Warzone, Extreme Three-Way Dance, Jenny and the Gems, Body Pressure, like so much more. Subscribe to that feed today. Subscribe to this feed if you haven't. And while you're at it, check out the Jenny Position. Jennifer Smith from our Place to Be Nation family has started her own feed with lots and lots of shows. On Place to Be Nation's Facebook and Twitter feeds, we've got our greatest sitcom of all time tournament, especially, there we go, that was easy for me to say, pertinent to listeners of this show. So check it out on Place to Be Nation Facebook page and Twitter. 4 matchups every day, going from the 50s all the way to today's shows. Let's get Seinfeld eliminated sooner rather than later. We've got so much going on. We've also got our 2020 stretch project determining the greatest WCW match ever. WCW Wrestling. The greatest match ever, in my opinion, of course, was Halloween Havoc 1997. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, you may have others. Of course, the great Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat trilogy of matches from 1989. Check it out. There's information on our website, but you can also go to facebook.com/GWCW matches or on Pro Wrestling Only message board. Check out placetobenation.com every day. Great articles, great podcasts. It's the only place to be in your pop culture world. And now, back to the triple header for It Was a Thing on TV.
Welcome to the It Was a Thing on TV podcast. Episode 5, Submission 047. That's My Dog, and Think Like a Cat. We'll start with That's My Dog, which aired on the Family Channel from September 1st of 1991 to September 30th of 1995, with additional episodes airing up until 1997 for a total of 100 episodes. This ran for 6 years?
That ran for 6 years.
I thought it ran for like half that time. It ran for 6 years. Oh my gosh.
This week's competitors are Tennyson and Dracula. And now, here's the host who sweats through his tongue, Will Schreider!
Hey guys, I'm back from my vacation last week. What did I miss?
Oh, hey, we have Chico here as always. Well, not as always, but we have Chico here.
This is the first time the three of us are actually together on a podcast, and Greg gets to hear a ghost story.
No, we were here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, us three have been together in the past.
Oh, my mistake. But yeah, Greg missed the ghost story from last week.
We'll let Greg get that out of the system before we start today's episode.
Before we get to That's My Dog, I want to talk about Jennifer Slept Here. I watched that episode 11 where, they filmed at her house where they did the life story. That was the worst episode I've ever seen in my entire life. Mike, you have the nerve to say Manimal was bad. Oh God, when you watch that episode, you will take back every bad thing you said about Manimal. she becomes she becomes briefly visible when the actress who she hates can't play the role of herself, and so she acts in the role, and then when they play it back, she's invisible, you see, because she's a ghost. And they were like, what? What? This random lady who showed up is not showing up on film, who just happens to look like Jennifer. Oh, that was such lazy, bad writing. Oh.
Tell us how you really feel.
It was the most campiest. And you know, you talked to me, Mike, about how it was the tone was very different with you and Kris about the show, but I thought it was campy as hell.
Well, there's a reason why it is campy as hell.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's the appeal of it, though.
I guess
it's an NBC comedy from the early '80s. Were you expecting some sort of masterpiece?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For every Cheers that we had and every Family Ties, we had to get a Mr. Smith and a Jennifer Slept Here and a Hello Larry.
Spoiler alert!
It's criminal that we have all the episodes available of Jennifer Slept Here on the tape trading circuit, but we can't find a single footage online of Mr. Smith other than the opening from the first episode. It is absolutely criminal. Okay, I'm done talking about Jennifer Slept Here. Let's move on to our subject.
What a travesty.
Mm-hmm.
What a human injustice. All right, speaking of injustices, hey, that's my dog. That's My Dog, as you might gather, was about dogs. It was a game show where dogs were the contestants. Two dogs and their family members competed against each other in various events, and the winning team, whoever got the most points, ended up winning a small prize package, usually like a little kitchenette or something like that. Actually, from what I've seen, it's a bunch of kitchen appliances. I mean, like an oven, a refrigerator, not a great refrigerator, but still a refrigerator, and a dishwasher. And I mean, that's not hay. That's probably still back in the day like $2,000 worth of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Especially in, 1990s money?
And also on a Family Channel budget.
Oh, yeah. And of course, it begs to be said, That's My Dog was based on a British format.
Yeah, based on the British show, That's My Pooch. No, it's called That's My Dog. I just remember that. If you remember Letterman about 20 years ago, Will It Float? There was a British version he said called Is It Buoyant?
Yeah.
Is it buoyant? So the British version of That's My Dog is That's My Canine.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually the real British title, because you know how Ready Set Cook here in the UK is Ready Steady Cook for some reason.
Yes, I do.
The British version was called That's My Dog.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there's very little information about it online.
Yeah, you'd have to go to ukgameshows.com for any information. But the American version was recorded, at least for one season, at Universal Orlando, back when going to Universal Orlando was the it thing to do.
And the episode I watched, from 1993 with Will Shriner, they were taping at Disney MGM Studios. This was the period when Disney MGM Studios, Disney would use it to tape we want any production here in Orlando. Come on, come in and film. Because I showed you a video, Mike, of a subject that we'll hopefully be doing in a couple of months. Wink, wink. Thunder in Paradise, where they would literally shoot at any area of the park for scenery at Disney.
Yep. And I have the information here. The first season was shot outdoors near Residential Street at the Disney MGM Studios backlot. This according to, of course, Truth by Consensus Wikipedia. And the second season was filmed at Universal Orlando, and the last 2 seasons were filmed at Disney MGM. But only the first season was filmed outdoors. Everything else was filmed in a soundstage.
Yes, and actually, while doing research for this, I found an article about Steve Scrovan, who was the first host. Now, that name may not totally ring a bell, but if you remember the hidden camera show from the early 90s called Totally Hidden Video, he hosted a couple seasons of that.
Yeah, it's Totally Hidden Video, which, by the way, to dash from Zach Morris's trash, that was a real show. It was not a fake show.
No, it was totally real.
No, it was real.
Video was totally real. That's because you were probably too young for that show, Dash. I'm saying that in case he's actually listening to us.
So yes, Steve Scrovan hosted the first couple seasons. He actually grew up in the same town, actually more township than town. It's a township where my cousins live. A little township, maybe about 30 minutes east of here, about 30 miles east of Cleveland, called Munson Township. Very quiet little community. That's where he grew up, so I thought that was very interesting. But also, the taping schedule for this, That's My Dog, they taped all the episodes of the season in 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many episodes were there per season?
Well, I mean, let's do the math. There's 100 episodes and 4 seasons, so probably 25, 26, 24.
All right, that is actually doable, because...
Yeah, 5 a day.
5 a day for a week. That's a season.
Yeah, 5 a day is very doable. And Steve Scrovan, you may not know the name, but he's gone on to bigger and better things. A couple years after he left That's My Dog, he was a writer for a little sitcom on CBS called Everybody Loves Raymond.
Never heard of it.
And actually, around the time that he was doing That's My Dog, he also wrote for, again, another little show called Seinfeld.
Never heard of that one either.
Oh, we'll have to add those to the list.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, again, judging by live research here, I believe he also wrote an episode of, spoiler alert, maybe a future entry, Salute Your Shorts.
That'd be a good one. Yeah, Nickelodeon classic.
Well, that's up for debate. We'll talk about that later.
Well, another thing I want to mention. In Steve Scrovan's episode of Seinfeld, he wrote the movie, the fictional film in the episode, Rochelle, about a young girl's strange erotic journey from Mulan to Minsk, made its first appearance in the episode. George later rents it from the video store in Season 4's The Smelly Car, and it is turned into a Broadway musical starring Bette Midler in Season 6's The Understudy.
And after Steve Scrovan left, he was replaced by Will Schreiner, who's sort of a familiar name in the game show circles. He hosted Small Talk on Family Channel later in the decade, 96, 97, I do believe. And his father was Herb Schreiner, who hosted Two for the Money. But also, Schreiner hosted some other shows in that time frame. He hosted Why Didn't I Think of That? Oh, there's one we need to add to the list. Why didn't I think of that? Do you guys remember that one?
No, I do not know that at all.
It was basically a competition between inventors. And I don't know if there's a panel. I remember bits and pieces of it. I'm sure it's online. And this panel, I believe, or somehow they determined like the inventor of the week. And it was a pretty blah show, but it was produced by Wink Martindale.
Mm.
Uh-huh. And that was early 90s. That ran for a couple of years. But he's been a fixture on TV for a long time, for decades.
And also, on his Wikipedia page, it mentions that he was a regular in 1980 on the NBC morning show, The David Letterman Show.
Another entry.
Yes.
one we're very eager to tackle.
Oh, that'll be so great.
But that's not coming for months. We'll just say that much.
Yeah.
So the game itself, as I said, two dogs competed in a series of different events. There were games where people would dress up the dogs, put shirts on them or put shorts on them, or maybe the dog is already wearing a shirt and a human's wearing a shirt, and they go into a big sleeping bag or some sort of giant bag, and they have to exchange shirts. Kind of interesting why they wanted to dress up dogs. I don't get that. But also there were some events like a game where there was a arrangement of bowling pins, and the dog had to knock over all the pins in 30 seconds. They did a similar game with dominoes, where they had 30 seconds to knock over as many dominoes as they could. Then there was a maze. And I've got...
the maze was awesome.
I've got issues with the maze.
Yeah,
I do too.
What's your issues? I know it looks pretty cool. But then again, this is 12-year-old Chico talking. He saw a maze on a game show. He's like, let me at that maze right now.
It wasn't the Crystal Maze.
No, and it wasn't the maze on American Gladiators either.
The maze on American Gladiators was so much better than this.
The maze, it had a lot of distractions. There was a little like a dish bowl, a water bowl filled with water to distract the dogs if they want to get a little drink of water. There was actually like a sand pit or sandbox which was full of dog food. Probably kibbles and bits because they apparently either sponsored the show or...
they put their name all over the place.
Oh, their name was everywhere. We'll get to that in a little bit, too. But my main issue is... Well, a couple issues. One, the walls of the maze were not high enough. I mean, they were probably about 3 to 4 feet high, but you had some of these dogs that were absolutely humongous and could probably leap over the walls in a standing position without a running start. Yeah. And actually, there's been more than one time that the dog would jump out of the maze, and I've seen different versions, because sometimes the dog gets disqualified, and other times the dog is allowed to go back in the maze.
Well, I believe it had to do with they could exit the structure, they could leap over the structure of the maze, but not the maze itself, if that makes any sense.
Okay, I'm actually talking about exiting the maze, because I have seen episodes where the dogs were disqualified if they left the maze, but there was one episode that I saw doing research for this, that the dog left the maze, and he jumped back in a couple seconds later, and he was not disqualified.
What?
I don't remember which episode this was, but he jumped out of the maze, or she jumped out of the maze, and then jumped back in and continued to go to the exit, which the dog eventually did. I don't think they won the maze. I think they were second place, but still, the dog wasn't disqualified there. But yeah, Chico's right. If the dog leapt over walls within the maze, that's perfectly legal. There were also some little shortcuts. There wasn't one way to exit the maze. One thing that was in there, and this I find was a disadvantage to some dogs, and you'll understand why. There was a shortcut hole, a hole in the wall where dogs could crawl right through and get a leg up, if you will, no pun intended there, on the opposition. The hole is big enough for an average-sized dog. If you had like a Great Dane or a St. Bernard or another big breed of dog, they couldn't get through that hole. I'm sorry, that's discriminatory towards large dogs.
Oh, I agree.
Yep.
So, yeah, that just didn't sit well with me. Maybe, from an equality purpose, but also there were many games or many shows where you had one little dog going against one big dog. So you had maybe like a Chihuahua or a Pomeranian or some little dog or even a medium-sized dog, maybe like a small Cocker Spaniel, and they're going against a Great Dane, or, I mean, I haven't seen any Bull Mastiffs. Good heavens if a Bull Mastiff entered the maze. But, yeah, it just, you've got a little 10-pound dog going against a 90 or 100-pound dog. That just doesn't seem too fair. Especially since I've had, growing up, 100-pound dogs. They're like miniature horses.
Yeah.
Then another thing they did, and this wasn't on all the episodes, they had a talent show.
This is what you call a time filler.
Well, I gotta, again, I have issues, and I don't mean those types of issues. First off, they had little kids doing the some of the judging, not all the time, but occasionally they had like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old be a judge. And I'm sorry, why'd you give that dog a 10? That dog is so pretty. But the dog just took a crap on the stage. he made the prettiest crap in the world. Well, okay, I'm joking there, but the thing is, it seemed like the little kids always gave like inflated scores because the puppy dog's so cute. Not that the puppy dog did their talent.
Because they're dumb kids.
Well, I get that, but I mean, is that necessarily fair? If the dog that gets a bad score because it's not cute loses by 2 points? I know. Okay, I know this isn't Jeopardy. I know this isn't some hard-hitting show. It's very lighthearted fare, but still, the kids, it seemed like, would give artificially high scores because the doggy's pretty, the doggy's cute. I like the doggy's name, and most of the tricks they had were like ridiculously stupid. Ridiculously stupid. Tell us how you really feel, Mike.
Yeah.
And then there was the doggy decathlon, and this is another game that I had issues with because the dog would have, depending on what season it was, they would either have 100 seconds or 60 seconds to complete the course. The 100-second season, there would be 10 obstacles, which would be a true decathlon, 10 events. The 60-second episodes, or 60-second doggy decathlons, would have just 8 obstacles. So that would be an octathlon, I think. Octathlon? Heptathlon? Octathlon? Sure, why not?
Yeah, well, let's go with that.
But the dogs would generally finish all 8 events in like no time. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Why are you giving them 60 seconds or 100 seconds to get all these events done? And the thing is, it is really a big difference maker. If the dog gets through all the events, which most of the time they did, the scores are going to be the difference in scores is going to be the same as they were going into the decathlon.
Mm-hmm.
So why do it? Or why have that much time? Is it because everybody's a winner?
Something like that, yeah.
It's the 90s doggy equivalent of participation trophies. So, yeah, it was a goofy show. It was even the butt of jokes in my family at the time. How do you guys feel about it? I'm curious to hear what you took away from it besides being blatantly against big dogs.
Well, here's the thing. I want to mention there was one game you neglected to mention that I showed you today on the episode I watched, and that was the attack of the 50-foot dog.
Okay, I've never seen this, so please explain.
Okay, so this is a game where they make up a mock city, and the dog has to, with the help of his trainers, try to knock down like these small little buildings, because the joke is the dog it's like a giant dog who's destroying this small city like he's Godzilla or something.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I do. I remember that too. It was sort of like doggy bowling, only instead of bowling pins, you have buildings.
Yeah, and you'd have the dog try to knock over the fake city with the fake buildings. It was so ridiculous.
I will add this about the Doggy Decathlon. They did have a great end, because the last event, the dog had to jump through the hole in the O in the "That's my dog" sign.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, that was adorable. But again, that's like the only positive takeaway I've got from the Doggy Decathlon.
Yeah, well, this show is basically, it was geared for a family audience, obviously.
Because it's a family channel.
Because it's a family channel, yeah. And it was basically turn your brain off television. It's like, no one's expecting high academia, especially from the round 3 canine quiz, where you have to bark in, where the doggy family have to bark in and answer questions. Yes, that's what they used. They called it barking in.
Well,
but yeah, if you were a kid and you liked dogs, this was. Do you have a dog or know a dog and was a dog person? This was a dog show every week.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Kibbles and Bits had to have something going on in terms of advertising, because there was.
Well, it was Kibbles and Bits during seasons like 2, 3, and 4, but the first season it was Iams.
Well, Iams I think was relatively new at that time, so that's a good way to get their name out.
Yeah.
But the thing about the Kibbles and Bits signage, oh my gosh, everywhere.
It was like your old high school gymnasium, where you would have like all these banners, and at least one of them was a Coca-Cola banner.
Or Pepsi.
Or Pepsi. In this place, you would have like all these vinyl banners, and at least one of them is Kibbles and Bits.
And they were behind the audience and on the maze, and I mean that's to be expected. I mean, if you see shows nowadays that do that type of branding, not necessarily shows here in America. There's been a few, but especially like overseas, branding out the wazoo. And talking about the cheapest surprises from earlier, the talent showcase judges, plus they had an at-home video contest where one video is shown each week. Those people would all win a Kibbles and Bits and Bits and Bits watch, which probably had a retail value somewhere around $1.98. But I'm not kidding. I mean, it looked like a cheap digital watch. No, it wasn't digital. It was analog.
Okay, then yeah, $1.98 is about right.
It wasn't even digital. It had the Kibbles and Bits and Bits and Bits and Bits and Bits and Bits logo on its face, and it looked like the band was that cheap rubber you would have gotten back in like the 90s.
So it was basically an analog version of the honeycomb watch?
Yeah. And, okay, as an adult, if I was an adult judge, I'd be like, all I'm getting is this crappy watch?
Yeah, I'd be pissed.
But as a kid, I could see like an 8-year-old going there, hey, look, I was a judge on That's My Dog, and I got a Kibbles and Bits and Bits and Bits watch.
My reaction would be, who cares?
Well, no, as a kid, I think that would be interesting.
As a kid, yeah, but as an adult...
Yeah, I mean, as an adult, we'd be like, who cares? But as a kid, I could see that kid bring it into show and tell, and just like, this is my favorite watch, because I got to judge Sparky the Bulldog, who tried tap dancing on stage.
That'd be like the most impressive trick on That's My Dog, if the dog actually tap danced.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the tricks they had were like dogs bouncing balls off their nose.
Oh yeah, those were not impressive at all.
Yeah, and actually they're sort of derivative from the games that were played, because there were games where there was one game I remember seeing where a volleyball or some sort of beach ball would be thrown at the dog, and the dog had to bounce it over the net with his snout or her snout. And that was actually a very interesting game, because not one, but 2 of the beach balls were destroyed by the dog in the playing of the game.
Whoops.
Wow.
Maybe they shouldn't have had like a rubber ball. Maybe it should have been a little thicker or something. I don't know. But I need to like rinse my mouth out of this. That's my dog. But I do want to add a couple more things. There were special episodes.
Ooh, yeah, I remember these special episodes. There was one celebrity show.
Celebrity dogs.
Celebrity dogs.
Celebrity dogs.
Celebrity dogs.
Oh my goodness!
Are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so the new hotness on Family Channel at that time was Rin Tin Tin Canine Cop. It was
corporate synergy.
Yep. Hashtag filmed in Toronto. Anyway, because it's cheap to produce in Canada. That's the thing. Anyway, yeah, and they went against Dreyfus from Empty Nest.
Now again, two big dogs. What are they going to do in the maze? They can't go through that little that hole in the wall. I mean, Rin Tin Tin would have been, I think, a German Shepherd, I believe, and Dreyfus was a Saint Bernard. Two huge dogs.
Yep. So I guess they didn't do the maze on that episode. I don't know.
Maybe they had a really big hole in the wall for the maze. And then there was a Christmas episode with Christmas-themed events. Aww. And this one, I have big issues with this. There was a puppy love episode where puppies played. Aww. Well, here's why I have issues. Well, one of the puppies was 10 days old. 10 days old. The reason I have an issue with this is a 10-year-old puppy should not be separated from his mother or her mother. I just think that's really bad for the dog. I know maybe the separation was only a number of hours, but still, and I don't think that dogs at 10 days old can even see, or maybe just started seeing a day or two earlier. But yeah, that just struck me the wrong way. And I say that as a dog lover. That's. I mean, we've never had any dogs who are younger than about 6 weeks old, and yeah, we've always adopted or gotten them from reputable dealers. But that just seems wrong. A 10-day-old on that show, and I don't mean to make light of the situation, but the puppy love episode with two little puppies was one of the lowest scoring games in the show's history. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but I just...
What a surprise.
Yeah, what a surprise. But I just see these two little dogs. No, that's just wrong. No, no, that's... I can't say any more about that. That's so wrong in so many ways. And I'm sounding like a dog lover, and I am a dog lover even though I've got two cats. But that's just... It seems like a good idea on paper, and maybe it sounded or looked like a good idea on television, but reading about it and getting the details, it's like, this wouldn't fly nowadays. Maybe this is something they could have gotten by with 25 years ago, but I don't see... I see a lot of pet advocates saying you're separating a dog from its mother at 10 days old to be on a stupid TV show. That's not cool.
Yeah, this is in the age of social media where everyone gets outraged at every stupid thing on Twitter every hour.
Well, again, not just that, but the thing is, like I said, the dog should be with the mother, and yeah, I'm no expert in animal husbandry, but that just seems wrong to separate the little pup from its family when he's been alive literally a week and a half.
Oh, I'm not going to argue with that.
Boy, that's like a sour way to end this half of the episode.
Well, I will bring up something that we haven't mentioned yet to lighten it up, but we didn't talk about the animated opening from season 1.
Oh, yes! Oh, and that's where the music that you heard at the start of the show came from. This is They had an animated opening. Actually, the animated opening came from later seasons, from what I've seen.
Oh, wow.
So I'm guessing they decided to spend the money on the show after they were, quote unquote, a bona fide hit, or at least renewed.
Yeah, Pat Robertson was like, you know what, we got to spend the big bucks on this. That's my dog show.
So yeah, they had an animated opening, and I'll let Greg go into that.
Okay, there's a. All right, let me describe the opening. So there's a thing that says a dog audition. There's a dog getting shot by a cannon. The dog is juggling bowling balls. There's another dog on stilts.
And this whole time, this dog shot out of the cannon is like sailing by them and giving thumbs ups.
It looks like something out of a Sega CD game from like 1992.
That's horrible. I mean, have you seen Sega CD games from 1992? That's horrible.
Have you ever seen the game Wonder Dog?
Yes,
That's
I
what
have.
It looks like. Yeah, but Wonder Dog is actually an amazing game.
Greg, get ready to have your mind blown.
What?
That's my dog for the CDI.
Are you kidding me?
No, we need to do that.
Oh, okay.
That needs to be a thing.
That's right. Well, if Thunder in Paradise can be on the CDI, That's My Dog could be on the CDI too. We have to get a tortoise. We got to steal Ed Begley Jr.'s tortoise made out of vegetable oil, go to his house, steal his tortoise, and convince Phillips, you know what, forget Hotel Mario, forget the Zelda games on CDI. That's My Dog on CDI.
And the whole idea is to aim that dog out of the cannon to swerve around different objects. Oh, look, there's a dog on stilts. Wave hi. Hi there. Oh, look, there's a dog juggling. Hey, how you doing? But then what happens after the dog goes past, flies past those other dogs? He smacks right into the stage door.
Ow. Because physical comedy, obviously.
Well, because apparently the person who shot off the cannon wanted to hurt the dog. Not that we would condone that. So then they'd show inside the studio where an audience of dogs, animated dogs, would hold up cards that spell, "That's my dog." And that's actually where the image you see for this week came from. But then they show a dog on stage. I forget what the dog on stage was doing. I think that might be juggling, I believe. And so the dog was doing something, I believe juggling, and
the dog was playing the accordion.
The dog was playing accordion, thank you. And a hook comes out, or not a hook, but rather a cane, like they used to do in the old vaudeville days, to grab the dog off the stage, and it rips the dog's head off, and you see it's actually a cat in a dog costume.
What a phony.
You know what? I'm sure Mike has something to say about that.
My cats don't know how to play the accordion. That wasn't the takeaway?
I'm sure Noodles played the accordion. It would be very impressive.
So that's when the show started. They showed the two dogs playing that day, and introduced
sort
the
of
host.
towing the line, as it were, right?
Yeah, and it sort of looked like the beginning of a boxing match where you've got one dog facing in one direction, you've got the other dog facing in the other direction, and they're ready to maul each other or whatever. Maybe maul isn't the best word.
Where's Don King when you need him?
No, it is not.
Only in America. And England, too. And actually, there was a live-action opening in earlier seasons. Not as fun, but the one thing that I didn't like about that open, the graphics they used to show the name of the show look like they're from the early 80s. I don't know if that's just, the Pat Robertson budget back in the early 90s, but it looked really dated, like I said, 10 years before the show aired. It would be something you saw in the early 80s, just bad computer graphics.
Yeah.
So that's my dog. I think we're going to put this one to rest.
So as long as you don't put it to sleep, because that would just be cruel. Hashtag adopt, don't shop. Anyway.
Chico Alexander, everybody. But now that takes us to Think Like a Cat.
Oh dear.
Think Like a Cat, yes.
Yeah, it is literally an hour-long commercial for Meow Mix.
Yes, it had just one episode, and it originally aired on GSN Game Show Network on November 15th of 2008. And if you thought that Kibbles and Bits and Bits and Bits was had a lot of advertising on That's My Dog, you haven't seen how much advertising there is for Meow Mix on Think Like a Cat.
Meow Mix scoured the country looking for outstanding cats and their human parents to compete in the first ever cat game show.
Think Like a Cat.
Will one team walk away $1 million richer? The top 8 pairs are here tonight and purring to go. This is the Meow Mix Think Like a Cat game show. It's the Meow Mix Think Like a Cat game show. Now, please welcome your host, Chuck Woolery.
Thank you very much. What is Think Like a Cat?
game show?
It's literally the Meow Mix game show.
An abomination?
Because this was in the period in 2008 where I was not watching GSN at this time. So this is completely new to me.
Well, I didn't have GSN at the time either, but thank heavens there's YouTube so we can get bits and pieces of it. There was apparently some contest that Meow Mix ran that they had cat owners sending in videos of their cats and showing their cats' talents and their relationship with the cats. And they picked 8 cats and their owners. And one of them would end up with a chance to win $1 million, up to $1 million. And they played a couple of different games to get there. The first game, all 8 cats were in little lanes, not unlike what you'd see in a 100-meter dash. I think there were some sort of walls separating them, so each cat had to stay in their lane. But the idea was the 3 cats that went furthest down the track before time ran out, they advanced to the next game. There was a lure at the end. There was, first off, their owner, but also second, there was a bowl of presumably Meow Mix at the end, which...
Well, I imagine so, because, well, again, look at the title. I mean, I can count on 2 hands, 2 feet, and maybe an abacus the number of times that Chuck Woolery said, what was it? Something goodness? Wholesome goodness? Because that was the thing that Meow Mix was pushing. Like NBC was pushing Mr. Smith.
As a cat owner, I've never actually thought of Meow Mix as having any sort of goodness.
Yeah, you're all about the temptations, Mike.
Well, no, that's their treat. That's a treat. Now, this is a Purina indoor cat formula food house. So the idea was that the first 3 cats to get to the bowl or furthest to the bowl in 1 minute would advance to the second part of the game. This might not be a good look for Meow Mix. Only 2 of the cats got to the food.
Wow.
And the third one was based on how far they got. Not necessarily how far they got when time ran out, because actually the one that was chosen was the one who went furthest, but then turned around. Maybe the cat saw his Meow Mix and was like, nope, I only eat fancy feast. Bye-bye. So then
that
those...
cat has standards.
Absolutely. I've never given my girls Meow Mix. So the people that were eliminated each got $1,000. and that's too low for the price of their dignity that they paid for being on this thing.
Wow.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not. The 3 remaining owners then played a game like Jeopardy called Cat Purdy.
Oh, that's terrible.
And
Lazy writing.
Wait, and oh, you want lazy writing? And all the categories were cat themed or cat puns.
Oh, Jesus!
Wow.
And they were similar to Jeopardy. 6 categories.
Cats.
Six categories. Ha 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 ha. And they were worth from 10 to 50 points. And the lowest scoring owner after this game left with $10,000. Oh, that's not bad. That's a jump going from 1,000 to 10,000. Then the 2 remaining cats are then recorded in different situations. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, they put cats in different situations and recorded them, and the owners wagered their points on what the cat will do before each clip is shown. So it's like anything for money.
I was just about to say Card Sharks 2001.
Oh, that's another one for the list. We haven't added that.
Yeah, or I was going to say, it's kind of like, do you remember that pilot that aired on GSN like 20 years ago called Monday Night Quarterback, where they'd show a play, and it would basically be like you make the call, what happens next in the play?
Right, exactly.
That's what it kind of reminds me of.
Yeah. So the 2 owners that are left, they wagered their points on what they thought their cat would do in the situation. Unfortunately, I don't have video of this, so I don't know what the situations are. And honestly, I can't think of 7 situations my cats would be in. So we'll leave that up to the imagination. And there are a couple of rules. They couldn't wager more than half their points on the first 2 questions. For the other 7, or for the other 5 questions, they could wager any or all of their points. And the cat and the owner who had the highest number of points won $25,000. The loser in that round left with $15,000.
Still not enough money.
So right now, Meow Mix is in for $55,000. 5 times 1,000 plus 10,000 plus 15 plus 25. But that's not all.
What?
The bonus round. They're going to play the Meow Mix $1 Million Challenge.
Oh, Jesus.
So this was stank-ass dumb luck.
Right?
I said it. Stank-ass dumb luck. There's 10 bags of Meow Mix on the stage. And each bag contains a symbol. And what the idea was that the cat and the human must get a matching symbol. Their symbols must match to win the $1 million. And they each chose a bag. Yeah, the cat chose a bag.
Cat, as cats tend to do.
Well, the thing is, and I tested this with one of my cats last week. The cat, I didn't do it necessarily with food in a bag. I put food in my fist. And I put actually a little food in both fists. And I held my fist out and said, pick a fist. And the cat always tended to gravitate towards my right fist. Even though there were equal amounts of both foods, equal amounts of the food in both of my fists. So, does a cat really know what random is? It's so freaking insipid. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like my theory you've heard my theory about horse racing. And I've told you this before, Mike. Does the horse, when it's racing, have any idea that it's racing? Does it have a concept of what's going on? It's judging by what you have said about this show, it's clear the cats have no idea of the concept that this is a television show they're on.
Gee, you think?
No, the cats obviously don't have a clue as to what's going on. They're, playing for food. They're
for all I know, they could be thinking, "Hey, I get to have dinner after this."
Well, they had dinner in the first event, and only 2 cats took advantage of it. And the dinner that night probably was more Meow Mix. And I wouldn't be surprised if Meow Mix gave everybody on the show a free year supply of Meow Mix.
Yay, I have all this Meow Mix sitting in my garage. Joy.
Well, again, as Chico said earlier, this was a 1-hour infomercial for Meow Mix.
Actually, my mistake. It was 30 minutes.
It's still 30 minutes too long.
It is still 30 minutes too long.
So the idea was, in the bonus round, was they get matching symbols, and if their symbols matched, they won $1 million. They didn't. They left with the $25,000 they won earlier. They didn't even have any matching symbols. And what this reminded me of, I forget what season it was. I want to say it was around 2008, around the same time as this, as a matter of fact. Hershey's did a similar promotion on Deal or No Deal.
Right.
Where if a family member, and I think it was her mother, had like the matching halves of a check or something like that, that they would win $100 million. The thing was, instead of 10 bags to choose from, there were 150. And only 2 of the bags, or 2 of the cases, because they actually used little cases like Deal or No Deal, only 2 of the cases had the winning combination. And in that case, just like this, neither of the winning cases were found. Surprise, surprise. A 1 in 150 shot a 2 in 150 shot at finding one of the cases. And actually, the odds of winning, this would never be 1.
What are the odds of winning?
1 in 11,175.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody's winning that. Well, maybe after 11,175 tries.
It's like the Doctor Strange 1 in 3 billion tries thing. I wonder what it would be like in the one scenario where they actually won the money.
Well, at least the Meow Mix one is a little bit easier, because the odds of winning the Meow Mix one is 1 in 45. Which actually isn't bad odds, given that you got 25,000 to start with, and $1 million is 40 times bigger. So this is just about like close to pot odds, if you will, like expected value.
Okay.
But still, it's ridiculous. And the thing is, what if the $1 million was given away? Is that Meow Mix's money? Is that insurance? Is that GSN's money? Well, I mean, we'll never know, but for a GSN show to give away $1 million,
They must have been confident, and I use the term loosely, that it was never going to be won.
Well, and again, but also, like I said, there must be some sort of insurance policy on it. And even if it costs like that $25,000, I don't know. Was GSN actually thinking, this is going to be like a great viral moment if this cat and this person match and they win the $1 million? Is it really money well spent?
I'm sure the money would have been like an annuity, like on the $1 million chance of a lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and in addition, if the $1 million was won, $100,000 was going to go to an animal shelter of the winner's choice.
Which is actually pretty cool.
Which is actually very nice. Absolutely. And who got stuck hosting this piece of crap?
Chuck Woolery.
Who was like the poster child for GSN at the time. He had hosted Lingo, and he hosted Lingo for
freaking ever. Like, what, 6, 7 seasons?
Well, at least 5 years, because it started in 2002. And yeah, I think there were episodes that went into 2007, so that would be 5 years, 6 seasons or so.
Yeah, that's a pretty good run.
And it's the last show he hosted, I believe. I don't think he hosted anything after that.
No, he did not. He did not host another show after that.
And this would explain why.
Seems like he went full Lucille Ball, if you remember the sort of whatever happened after Life with Lucy got excoriated by critics, because this show was absolutely trashed.
Well, that's the reason why it's here. It just also just reeks of desperation by him. Desperate for a paycheck. Because, remember, not even 10 years earlier, he was hosting Greed. And we said Lingo. So he had a good career. And then he hosted this. And we're not going to mention what he's done since then, because he's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a joke I'd say here, but I'm gonna just stay out of it. Just no.
We're not gonna be that guy.
No, not at all.
No.
And actually, it did get good ratings despite being a glorified infomercial. It received over 1 million combined viewers during its 5 airings. 1 million viewers on GSN in 2008 is actually a pretty decent number.
Well,
it's 200,000 per episode, or average per episode.
Yeah, but consider this. Even the big 3 on GSN today, that would of course be America Says, Common Knowledge, Catch 21.
Yep.
They average about 300,000, 400,000 an episode now, with less stakes.
With an actual show.
So just something to think about.
Well, also GSN has changed so much in the last 11 years. So they found their niche. And maybe this was a hit in somebody's eyes. I'm guessing maybe a Meow Mix executive. Clearly not somebody at GSN. Because those numbers totally dwarf other things GSN has shown besides the shows we mentioned.
The American Bible Challenge and
the Chase. The Chase, one that's near and dear to your heart and mine.
Yeah, let's keep it
at that. I'm more than content leaving it at that. It's just that Chico and I have our own stories about how we were very close to getting on the show. We'll just
leave that there.
Yeah, we don't need
the Chase.
We don't need to reopen that wound.
Yeah, let's put that paper cut in the past where it belongs. Anyway. But yeah, you look at numbers for this show, and then you look at numbers for the American Bible Challenge and the Chase and the big 3 that are on today, and you think to yourself, big concept works well if it's done well. This was big concept, but it was not done well. And like with every show that is not Scrabble, it seems to me that Chuck Woolery was mailing it in.
Many people have said that. Now, not just about this, but about other shows that he's hosted. I don't think he was necessarily mailing it in on Greed, but...
Oh, no, I don't think so either.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Or it's the only show that I can say without uncertainty that Chuck Woolery did not mail it in, Love Connection.
Oh, Love Connection's great.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that needs to go on the list for the Andy Cohen version.
Oh, I saw 10 minutes of the Andy Cohen version, and I'm like, nope. I'd rather watch the Pat Bullard version than this.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't mind them. We're doing a podcast, but they're doing show prep.
Hi, TC.
No, he's talking to Banoodles. Come on.
No, neither of them are nearby, I'm sorry to say.
Oh.
That's exactly how the cats feel about Think Like a Cat.
They ran away?
They were like, F this.
Yeah, and Benoodles is actually here for That's My Dog, so she must have known something was coming when she scurried off. Well, we survived this episode.
Yep.
It's one that went to the dogs. And the
cats.
And the cats.
Boy,
But speaking of cats, Mike.
Oh, no! Is this a segue to next week?
Yes!
Ooh! Segue!
Do you really want to spoil it here, or should we save it?
Tease.
Well, Chico, I don't think knows what we talked about in the first preview episode, did we?
I know it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Well, as I mentioned at the end of last week's episode, we're sort of doing these on a category basis for every 2 to 4 weeks. And you can probably guess what the category is for this block of shows. We're going to look at a show next week, which actually sort of swept the world, kind of, sort of. It did make news in America, in the UK, about 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. What happens when you do Big Brother, but the people in the Big Brother house are not humans, they're cats.
Ooh, I know what you're about to do, but I'll keep everybody in suspense for another week.
So yeah, next week we're going to look at a show which is essentially Big Brother with cats. And yes, that was a thing on TV. That's a good name for a podcast. I should save that. That's
a good ending. I like it a lot. I think you should do more of it.
Yeah, make that the close for every episode from now on.
Again, more show prep while we're doing this on the air.
Oh, for the love of God.
So, yeah, that's going to be it for our episode this week. I don't have to see That's My Dog ever again. Hallelujah.
Good.
Yes, we're going to put that one to pasture. Oh, no, that would be cows if we put it to pasture, but just remember...
They're going to a magical farm upstate is what Mike is trying to say.
They're going to become your next burger from McDonald's.
Oh,
that's cruel!
Mike, come on.
That was mean. I'm sorry. But it's awfully delicious. So, as always...
Can't take you anywhere.
We're going to hell. I'm sorry. As always, you can find us everywhere online. You can find us at Twitter on twitter.com/itwasthethingontv, at Tumblr, at itwasthethingontv.tumblr.com, on Instagram at instagram.com/itwasthethingontv, and on Facebook at facebook.com/ guess what? It Was a Thing on TV. And, of course, you can find all the episodes on iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher and at our website, itwasthethingontv.podbean.com. So, for Chico Alexander and Greg Diener, this is Mike Klaus. We'll see you next week for, I'll give the name of the show, Meow Manor.
That was the thing on TV?
It was the thing on many TVs.
Oh, wow.
We'll get into that next week.
Oh, yes.
Have a good week. We'll see you next time.
All right.
The winners of both That's My Dog and Think Like a Cat, they won cash prizes. The losers were all neutered.
Oh!
Go to your room right now, Mike Klaus!
No!
There's your ending!
Go to your room!
There's your ending!
Go to your room right now!
No!
Bad!
No!
That was bad and you should feel bad!
No!
That's still going at the end.